Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Arcade Tirade, the podcast that's all about video games. I go by the name Zuve
and Phantom Outlaw.
It's January 4th, 2019, first episode of the year, and let's do this thing. So, what have you been playing lately?
Yoshi's Woolly World on the Wii U and the Sega Genesis. I think it's like 64 games in one of those plug-and-play things. But I had this one for about 3 years now. At Games make this the one I have. I don't know if another company is making the other ones. I don't know if At Games is still making those since the Nintendo and Sony and I guess Nintendo and Sony did their little mini consoles. I don't know if they also did Atari too. At Games, I think, was doing the Atari games as well, but I'm not particularly sure they'll keep up with them at all. I saw that and they had like all those games. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely getting that. And you can still put old Genesis cartridges in it too.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about that. You said At Games?
Yeah. It's just the logo they have on the system. Yeah, At Games, Sega Genesis Classic Game Console. So I got this in 2013. Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were talking about that new compilation that came out on the Switch.
Oh no! This is a system itself. It's about the size of the palm of your hand, about the length of your hand, and you just plug it into. It's got a yellow and white cord you just hook up to a TV.
I did hear some complaints about the At Games mini console, but it sounds like you like it pretty much, huh?
Oh, this one is great. I think maybe the complaints were a few years after I bought this, but I haven't had any issues with it.
So, anything else?
Oh, what did I play with recently on the Switch? Oh, good. Smash Brothers.
Yes. Ultimate. If you didn't say it, I was gonna.
Yeah, like
because you know I've been playing that shit.
Yeah, That game is insane. Love that game.
Have you unlocked every character yet?
No, what I was doing was the spirit missions, thinking I was unlocking them because when you exit the spirit game part of it, a new challenger pops up. So I thought I had to unlock them that way, and I forgot I hadn't played Smash Brothers so long that you can play the classic mode and unlock them too.
Right.
So I was confused and it was silly me didn't realize I was unlocking spirit characters from getting those statues or whatever they're called. And like I said, when I exit the game, exit that portion of the game, I would get a new challenger, which would go to the classic game roster or whatever. So it seems like it's more than one way to unlock characters, I guess. I'm trying to get that. You go to classic mode and unlock them, and then you're going to unlock them, I think, if you exit some of the other portions of the game.
Yeah.
Just kind of pop up, so.
Yeah, they seem to just throw characters at you constantly because there's so many to unlock.
Yeah, so I got thrown off by how they were doing it. So.
You turned on your Switch console. New challenger approaches.
Yeah, shit like that, yeah.
You checked the options menu. New challenger approaches.
I had issues with Bowser for some. That idiot I would get him pretty beat down and he'd do a kick move every time. I finally got his ass, but it was like, why? It's this hard.
Yeah, the AI seems to. This seems to be a tradition with Smash games, is the AI is just a total prick with certain characters.
Yeah.
I've noticed with Sonic that's been a recurring theme. Little Mac was a nuisance. I had to fight him 2 or 3 times. But yeah, the World of Light, man, the Spirit game, the single player. How do you like that one so far?
I'm digging it. I think it's one of the better adventure modes because I really don't care for the adventure modes. I think the only one I did like was the one on GameCube, the not Brawl, Melee. I think I kind of enjoyed the adventure mode on that one, but this one seemed way more fun for me. Whatever they did it better than they've done in the past. I never liked the adventure mode much in the other games.
I'm impressed with how big it is and how they've been able to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
I'm probably like almost halfway through.
I'm not sure where I'm at because it's so big. I'm at some portion of it where it's so many, but like I think the last thing I did was the lava area, whatever that's called. You go underground and it's surrounded by lava.
I went in there. I haven't really gone that far into it.
Have you done any of the dojos and the where you put like 4 characters?
Yeah.
Or spirits.
Yeah, the spirit dojos. Yeah, I've done some of those. The I can't remember what they're called. This style, that style.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to figure out how all the details of the spirit system. I've got it down pretty well. I usually keep one with a three card slot.
Me too.
Yeah, you can get the most abilities. It's still proven.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these fights are still proven, regardless of what I have, to just be. Some of them I haven't been able to even beat yet. They're just like there's one where you have to fight Paula, but it's Ness, but it's supposed to have the spirit of Anna, actually, one of the characters from the old Mother game. It's ridiculously tough. It's a stamina battle, and there's 2 of them. And then the one where you got the chick from Fatal Frame and Luigi's Mansion was ridiculous too.
Yeah, my hardest one. Well, until I understood what the spirit system was, when you have to fight on the rocks with the wind blowing you backwards and you can't swim.
Yeah.
And I thought I was doing pretty good. I'm like, as long as I stayed on the rocks, I was getting hits in, but I didn't understand what the spirit system was like when I did that stage. And then when I got the rend resist, I'm like, oh, that's what this shit does. And so I figured it out, beat that stage. I think the hardest one for me, I think was shit. I think about because I talked to another friend of ours that has the game. He had the same issue with that particular stage. Go ahead and think. I'm trying to think what it is. What was the hardest fight I had?
There's one in the jungle where you get Donkey Kong. I know that because I looked, but I haven't been able to get past one of the fights there. And I don't remember who it is just that I'm against, but it's so insanely hard. So I do what I always do is I figure, okay, I either need to get another character that's better suited for this, and I think I'm at about 10 characters unlocked now in the spirit mode, but I either need the right spirits or the right character, but fuck it, I am not doing this fight right now. It's too much. This is the first time in a long time I found myself yelling at the game in frustration.
Oh, me too, and I almost threw my controller. I can't remember what fight it was. It was so annoying. It's one thing if the fight is, I don't mind a challenge, but when it's annoying and feels cheap and like by chance I might win this fight, I can't stand that.
Yeah, that's not fun. I mean, I guess winning by chance. They call that gambling. I guess it's fun for some people, but not me.
Yeah, I don't know. Especially,
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a great game. I really don't have that many complaints.
Oh, I don't either.
My another friend of mine who was a hater of Brawl because of the physics. Like I hear so many people. He's a Brawl loyalist, or he's a Melee loyalist. I'm sorry.
Okay.
He's kind of in the middle on this one, and I understand because it is more gravity focused like Brawl, Melee. It's more gravity focused like Melee, but it's still a little spacey like Brawl.
Yeah.
But again, I never really had a problem with Brawl, which apparently makes me a cuck or a soy gamer or something like that. Because my friend, he got really legitimately pissed when I said, I still enjoy Brawl. And he's like, no, you can't just bow down and accept what they give you. You need to criticize that this game is garbage. I'm like, but I don't think it is. I just think you're really snobby with games, dude.
I'm well snobby with something. I'm like that with fighting games in general. Because when I play this and I play Soul Calibur, I feel like Smash Brothers is kind of I've heard people call it the game for gamers who can't play fighting games well.
I can see that.
But So when I play it, I have to have a whole different mindset that this game is not like other fighting games that I play because I'm a huge fighting game fanatic. But I enjoy it because I don't have to think much from it. So it's kind of like I do with racing games sometimes. If I don't want to play a simulator racing game, kart game is like the perfect. I don't have to do much, just arcadey, and I'm okay with that. I feel like Smash Brothers is one of those games that I can just have fun with. I'm not too much of a snob with it, so I think I bought everyone except 64 because I didn't have I did have 64, but I didn't get Smash Brothers until Melee.
Yeah, I tried going back to the original not long ago. Good God, it has not aged well, in my opinion. The controls are
I think Melee is still at
everything.
Evo and stuff. Yeah.
You say Melee you think is evil?
No, I said Evo. I think they still play Melee or
right.
One of the older games, Smash Brothers is. I think Melee is the only one that they still play at for like fighting game tournaments.
Yeah, well, the diehards they still love. They cling to Melee.
Yeah, they will not play the other ones. Or at least at the tournaments, I don't see them really screwing around with the Wii version or Brawl that much. Or the Wii U version and the Wii version.
I never got to play the Wii U version.
It's basically what you're playing now.
Okay. Did it have a single-player mode?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember it. Because I mostly played either online or I played classic mode. I cannot remember the adventure mode. And I don't think it was all that because I probably would have remembered it. Again, this is the only time I really enjoyed the adventure mode in the Smash Brother game.
I used to really like. I still have good memories of Brawl's single player, the Subspace Emissary, but I admit that it got really way too repetitive. So many levels of just fighting the same things. The cutscenes were cool, but it was very redundant. You'd have like the same 10 or so different enemies repeating over and over, and then a fight here and there. And then that last section, which was this giant dungeon. I don't know, did you complete the single player on Brawl?
No, I lost interest real quick.
Yeah, it was a giant dungeon. It was all styled like Kirby Superstar in a lot of ways, of course, because the whole series was developed by HAL and was influenced by that game. But yeah, I'm happy with what they have now.
I wonder if they can top this. Most of the stuff that's coming out on Switch, I wonder if they can top a lot of the stuff that they. I can imagine that, like Breath of the Wild. How can they top that? And
good question.
This game, where they put everything in it, what could you do next with this game? That hasn't been done with this one so far. I kind of like the skill tree system too.
Yeah, the skill tree is cool. It kind of reminds me of the leveling system they had in Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, yeah.
I know we had talked about this on a previous episode because you had said, I wonder how they're going to top Breath of the Wild. And I said, well, didn't you wonder that back when Ocarina of Time came out? And you said no, because you saw that there was room for improvement. And I'm starting to agree with you on that because I can see now the big improvements, between what we have with Breath of the Wild going back to Ocarina of Time. And of course I was younger back when that came out and that was amazing to me, but yeah, 3D was the big thing. And then of course they kept expanding with it. But at this point, you have a completely open world that you can do almost in any order that you want. You have millions of different variables and factors and different characters and side missions and this and that and as many horses as you want and bring horses back from the dead and blah, 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 blah. I do wonder. I mean,
because I wonder if they're going to have to take
what's next?
Because I wonder if they have to take a step back since they went open world. Now it's like you're not confined, or they're going to go back to. It's kind of like when they did. I thought that was to me still the best Mario Kart game.
Hold on, when they did which one? You blanked out for a second.
Oh, sorry. When Double Dash.
Yeah.
Mario Kart Double Dash, I thought is the best, in my opinion, best Mario Kart game. So when the next one came out, it was like, oh man, they don't. I like the Double Dash, the way they had that system. So I felt like they peaked with that game at that point, and then when they went back to taking away the 2-player type of card system, I'm like, it's kind of bland now. It's kind of not as fun as Double Dash is. And Breath of the Wild and a lot of stuff that Nintendo's coming out with, can they improve, or are they going to have to go backwards, since we're now kind of spoiled with the open world part of, or some of the stuff they did with Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
I think Smash Brothers can still improve, because you can always do something with fighting games, but with Zelda, it's like, man, going open world now, I think anything you do now will be kind of a step back if you don't keep it open world, unless they. But then you don't want to get stale with the open world stuff too. So it's kind of a how do they do that?
I think the future is to perfect the open world, because there were a lot of patches of nothingness. It was still, there was still plenty to see, but in some parts it almost felt too open. Or maybe they'll make an even bigger map and they'll learn from their mistakes, and it'll just be a bigger map with more. Who knows? I mean, maybe you'll have an inter-country, like you can go to different, kingdoms besides Hyrule.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, they can always do that. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like it's kind of like, even with the Switch system, I can't imagine them going back to regular consoles now and not be a hybrid. If they do a next console, is it going to be a handheld hybrid, thing, or they're going to have a set-top box thing?
Well, they're going to have some goofy gimmick, for better or for worse, since it's Nintendo. Actually, I got a good segue from that into something in the news, if you want to move on.
Sure.
So apparently, someone just discovered a negative glitch world in the original Zelda game. A minus world, sort of like in the Super Mario Brothers original. They discovered a -1 world years ago. Let's see here.
From the original game, was it an emulator?
No, it was the original game. You can get it without any kind of hacking or anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it has to do with going through certain pixels, and it warps you into a glitch world. Let's see here. Recently, somebody hacked their way into this Zelda negative world, apparently. The YouTuber Skelix made it a goal to explore as many NES games minus worlds as possible, starting with the first Zelda. So he had to break into the game's code to bypass the game's internal mechanism from preventing players from walking out of bounds. Of course, the 8x16 square grid that makes up the Zelda world actually goes all the way to 16x16 grids. It says here, it uses a hexadecimal system which represents the second half of the map with negative integers, which creates an error if Link tries to appear in those squares. There's a video where he walks around for about 6 hours. I'm sorry. He spent 6 hours messing around with the code to get rid of the barrier. It says he was able to enter the bottom half of the map without restarting the game. It's at once both completely glitched out but also stable enough for him to reasonably play through. Enemy sprites are inverted and objects are scattered across the screen in a haphazard fashion. There are caves with pulsing rave beats inside of them. Kind of curious what they mean by that. Graveyards surrounded by invincible enemy hybrids, trapdoors. Says it makes it look like the game's on an acid trip. So that's that. Let's see. A small bit of news. Video game communications now subject to U.S. accessibility law. It says here, people with disabilities can now expect more accessibility to game communication services like text and voice chat in the near future because of a new U.S. law that affects the industry. It says here, Obama signed in 2010 the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act into law, which takes laws written in the 80s and 90s and updates them with 21st century technologies in mind, which gives disabled people greater access to modern communications like voice chat, text chat, and video chat. The video game industry managed to avoid compliance with the law by receiving a series of waivers, but the last of those expired on December 31st. So now gamers in development, including ones already in development, have to be fully compliant, or at least as compliant as possible. It says games released before December 31st, which will still receive substantial updates online with DLC, have to be compliant. This will, obvious examples will include Fortnite, Destiny 2, and World of Warcraft. So, I don't really have much to take out of that one. Seems like it's an overall good thing. I just got a couple more here. I have the 12 hottest video games in early 2019, according to Business Insider. So first is the remastering of Resident Evil 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I can tell you're interested in that one.
Hell, man, I can't wait. I've been wanting...
January 25th.
Oh, yeah, that's just... Yeah. I've been waiting for... Because they did the Resident Evil HD remake. Then they did Resident Evil 4 has been remade. Well, not so much remade. HD'd up. They brought it on. It was first on GameCube, of course.
Gave
and it was on the Wii. Went to the Wii, and then it went on PS3, and Xbox 360. Then got HD'd up again on the current systems, PS4 and Xbox S and One X and whatever number they put on the X's, Xboxes, and then but they never did a 2. Resident Evil 0 also had an upgrade. Pretty much got all of those. So did Resident Evil 5, but Resident Evil 2 was not touched until now, and everybody, it's probably most people will tell you Part 2 is probably their favorite, next to maybe 4.
Mm-hmm.
And hell yeah, I know when I saw that at E3, it's the only thing I cared about at E3 was that. Almost jizzed all over myself, and then jizzed some more after looking at the video quite a few times. Couldn't wait for that. I cannot wait for the game to come. Hope it's well done. Looking forward to it.
I hope so, because that's going to be a huge disappointment. They got a lot of pressure on a game like this.
Yeah.
So that one's going to be Xbox One, PS4, and PC. The next one is another anticipated title, Kingdom Hearts 3. And that's going to be another January release on the 29th, and that's going to be PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I never played the Kingdom Hearts games. I've always been told I was wrong for that. What's your take on it?
I only have the first one on PS2. I'm mistaken, it's on PS2. Yeah. It's okay.
So, something about the cross between Final Fantasy-like characters, well, Final Fantasy characters, and Disney characters just didn't appeal to me. But it's not fair. I never gave it a real shot.
Crossover. And they do a pretty good job with the crossover.
Yeah.
Again, I only care about that one game, so I'm not a big follower of the whole Kingdom Hearts stuff. I know a lot of people love it, though. Could take it or leave it, though. I think it's good, but...
This is the first entry since 2005. I didn't realize it's been that long.
Yeah, and they've been rumoring, for years. Kind of like what they did with what's the damn game, with the half dog, half hawk bird thing. The makers of Eco and Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think of the damn game. Well, that game was supposed to be, I think, a PS2 or PS3 game. I think it was supposed to be a PS2 game. And that thing took so long to come out. When it finally came out, they played it, but it was so clunky control-wise and everything. People kind of just, kind of waited for nothing. All this anticipation, and I hadn't heard much of it after it came out.
So the next one is Far Cry New Dawn, which I don't believe I've heard about until now. And we just had a Far Cry last year, Part 5. This is a direct sequel. It's supposed to take place 17 years after the events of Far Cry 5 in a post-apocalypse Montana. Or 17 years.
I thought one of the two black chicks on the front of it.
What, with New Dawn?
Yeah.
I haven't seen a cover. I just have a picture of a screenshot.
Oh, okay. I don't know if they're the villains or not. But it's supposed to be two black chicks with braids, but long,
Could be.
or long one like braid.
I've always liked the villains in Far Cry.
From the
They were always pretty creative.
picture that I saw, I think they announced that at the Video Game Awards, and I think Mortal Kombat 11 is like April or something. I'm also looking forward to that one.
Oh, by the way, speaking of relatively new games, this is another one I've been playing lately. Have you played Lightfingers?
No,
Have you heard of it?
no.
So it's an independent game I got on the Switch. It's a board game where you play as thieves and you're trying to rob like vaults, royal tombs, businesses, and you have to take your loot back without getting caught by guards. It's a lot of fun. I think there's some platforming elements too. Like if you go down into a temple or a vault, you have to get through a bunch of obstacles, and it has a pretty decent challenge to it. It's fun, but you need I would say at least 3 players, and it's not online, so you have to have them with you. So that's one of the downsides, but that's a fun one. I'd recommend.
Well, I played 2 new ones, Rise and Shine and Shantae, that have Genie Hero.
They have a
Pretty
what?
good games. Shantae, Shantae.
Right.
Shantae.
You said something about a hero, half genie?
Yeah, Have Genie Hero. That's the subtitle to it.
Oh, okay.
And Rise and Shine. Rise and Shine is like apparently I guess it's an Adult Swim cartoon. I'm not aware of, but
they're cranking out shows all the time, so I don't even keep up with them all.
well, they got a game out called Rise. It's a pretty good game. It's a kid with a big ass gun that talks, but it's a good shooter. And
The gun talks?
Shantae is a platformer. Huh?
You said does
Yeah,
the
the gun
gun?
talks. Yeah. Oh, you got to see the intro. If you ever get a chance, I've got to let you see it. The character that gives him the gun looks, what do they call him? You got to see the intro to it, and it's basically Link, but it's pretty funny. It's like a parody of.
Oh, it's dangerous to go alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old caveman or the old man in the cave.
Yeah, but the guy that gives him the gun looks exactly like Link, though.
Okay.
And Shantae uses her hair to fight enemies, but it's a very good platformer. I would highly recommend that too if you're into platforming games. I never played. I seen it a lot when it was on, I think on the Wii U. I thought it was a dress-up girl game. I didn't know what it was. And then so Shantae was in Smash Brothers as one of the spirits, I think.
In the new one?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many characters, so many like sub-characters, spirits, assist trophies. I don't know. You know, there's probably a good lesser half of them that I don't actually know of.
So she's one of the, I think she's one of the, I haven't unlocked it, but I remember seeing it before the game came out, when they were doing the kind of preview of it. They were splashing some of the characters on screen. So I remember seeing Rayman, and I saw her. I was like, oh. And that made me think, let me check out that game, but I'd seen it so many times, I never gave it a chance until I played it. It was on sale, and I went on and bought it. It was a pretty fun game.
I'll have to check that out. What's that on?
Switch. Both the games I mentioned was on Switch.
Okay, yeah, both of them are on Switch. Cool.
Yep, Rise and Shine and Shantae.
So next upcoming games list, we have Dead or Alive 6. I don't know what else to say. It's another Dead or Alive game.
Is it the volleyball one? Because if it's that one, I'm looking forward to it just for the boobs. But I think Sony is doing what Nintendo used to do. So they're trying to censor the game on not on Nintendo, on the PlayStation for some odd reason. And the Switch is not going to censor the game. Weird. Fucking bizarre world we're living in right now.
Everything's reversed.
Yeah.
I remember when
Outside
Nintendo
of
was the
real world.
Yeah.
We got Switch going good in the video game world, same thing.
Right. Well, yeah, the two worlds collided a few years back, of course.
Because I have a game I heard called Senran Kagura Reflections on Switch, where you get to massage bitches in the game, slap the thighs and stuff. And that's on the Switch.
Hmm.
And I bought that
Yeah.
shit because I'm a freak like that. So it's pretty good.
It's interesting. I'm glad that Nintendo's embracing, risque things like that now, since they were the censorship gaming console, for so long.
Now it's weird to see Sony trying to be it's like, God, what the hell is going on?
So let's see. And by the way, it's a straight up, it's a fighter. It's not the bikini volleyball.
Okay, I'm confused. Okay, yeah, 6. Okay, they're like they bring in okay, so they're live Extreme Volleyball. I think they're coming a new version of that game too.
Yeah,
that's what I was mentioning. That's what I meant. I'm hoping they don't take out the jiggle physics in Dead or Alive game. That's what the game is known for. It'll be silly for them because it's kind of shallow in its execution in terms of fighting. It's kind of a button masher kind of game. I played damn near every one of them, basically because of the jiggle physics. But I mean, and the girls' costumes, you can,
right.
That's the whole fun of that game. And the fighting is kind of like the icing. It's like the reverse of, supposed to be fighting, supposed to be the first thing, but I think they're trying to change their tune and they want to keep the jiggle figure. That's the whole point of. That's what your game is known for. So you taking that out would make sense. But they did talk about. Go ahead.
Oh, it says here in the article, if history is any indication, DOA 6 will also feature stages with multiple areas and interactive elements.
Mm-hmm.
And the game's coming out February 15th for Xbox, PS4, and PC.
Oh, stuff coming out January.
So then we have Crackdown 3.
Well, that's finally coming out.
Yeah, that's going to be out February 15th. Xbox and PC. Crackdown. Never played a Crackdown game. So it's an open world action.
I have it on. Yeah, I think I got the original one on Xbox.
It's going to start Terry Crews.
Yeah.
I might just. Well, I don't have the consoles, but I could get it on PC. I'd get it for that. Another one is Anthem.
Yeah.
An action RPG from BioWare, online. Collective groups can take on missions. Sounds like you're not really thrilled. I really am not experienced with this game. When I first heard it, I thought of the Ayn Rand book, but I figured that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I'll stick to Warfare. I think it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be strictly PvE or both PvE, people versus environment, or people versus people. I don't know if it's going to both have both elements in it, or it's going to be strictly fighting AI the whole time. I have Warframe already that kind of, I think, does what this game is going to do, I think. And that game is free. So,
interesting.
I'm not comparing it to, I think there's going to be, as far as, the only thing I'm comparing is it's going to be player versus environment, or is it going to be both?
Yeah, it doesn't say here.
Oh, okay. That's my understanding that Anthem was going to be like.
Well, BioWare made Destiny, right?
No, that's Bungie.
Oh, okay. Okay, the way they're wording it here was confusing. It says they compare it in ways to Destiny.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It says, large players grouping up to take on missions. They say the graphics look pretty good based on the screenshot. Yeah, they look damn good. Each player has the ability to fly through the air like Iron Man whenever they want. They're pretty vague with their description on it, though, so it's impossible to say from this.
Since it's coming partly from EA, fuck EA.
Right, fuck EA. So then we have Metro Exodus.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to that one, too. I love Metro.
Set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland like half of all video games these days, it seems. Set in Russia. In a post-apocalypse via nuclear radiation, dwindling resources, extreme weather, nuclear monster, survival, first-person. It's a first-person shooter. That's going to be another February 22nd game.
Oh, okay. That's good. Yeah, the first two Metro I have, I think it's based on a book. Um, yeah, I think the first two games. Well, the game is based on a book by the same name, I think, by a Russian author, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
I'll find the author's name. But yeah, I'm looking forward to. I've really enjoyed the first two games, so I'm hoping this third one do a good job with it.
So the next one is Trials Rising, a dirt bike game. I think I've played one of these before, or one similar to it. Do you know anything? Is this a? It's the graphics are 3D, but the track's 2D.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
the way it looks. It's kind of like Excite Bike inspired.
Yeah, our friend loves that game. Those the Trial series.
It says here, Trials takes the formula and turns it into a risk-free video game, and then it adds massive, ridiculous explosions. And that's coming out February 26th, which will be on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PC, and the Switch. So I imagine that's going to be like a $20 tier game. Next, we have Devil May Cry 5.
I'm looking forward to that one, too.
That's going to be March 8th, Xbox One, PS4, and PC. Thank God for the PC, because there would be so many games that I wouldn't have access to without it. And God bless Steam while we're at that.
Oh, yeah, Steam is cool.
So I played the original Devil May Cry. I always enjoyed that. I've seen friends play the remake of it. It seemed like a spam kind of game in a lot of ways. There's just a lot of button mashing and kill everything around you. At least that's what I remember from the first one. But it was still a lot of fun. It says here, right, over-the-top settings, as the series is known for. The first trailer for the game indicates all of this. It takes these ideas and runs with them, then leaps into the air and murders like 24 flying demons, as the writer put it. Which sounds exactly right, like I remember the series. So then we have The Division 2. I don't know anything about that. They're comparing it to Destiny and Anthem, third-person shooter with cooperative play with co-op online. It's going to be March 15th, Xbox One, PS4, and PC. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. So this is from the folks behind the Souls series and Bloodborne. But this one's Cthulhu-inspired and set in a Victorian-looking backdrop. But it takes place in feudal Japan.
Yeah, I want to play that too. I wish From Software would do same people as doing the game you just mentioned. There's a game on Xbox, the original Xbox called Atagi.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Oh man, it was so good. Destructive environments. I like the hack and slash mechanics of it. But there was only two ones they made, and I would love for them to make some more games out of that series.
Well, it seems like this one's going to stay faithful to the ethics of the Souls games. It says here, you'll be playing as a ninja out for justice. Like other third-person action games from the folks at From Software, Sekiro promises to be extremely difficult. Any enemy can take you down, and you're best off being careful tactically with every foe. Unlike previous From Software games, though, this one will feature a major stealth component and a lot of mobility. And that's going to be March 22nd, Xbox One, PS4, and PC. And now, finally, a Nintendo exclusive. I'm sorry. That is... Oh, that's the last one, actually. Hold on here. Mario Kart Tour. So it's Nintendo IP, but I don't think it's Nintendo exclusive. It's going to be on smartphones.
Ugh.
Yeah. I wonder what Iwata would say right now if he were here. Because wasn't he anti-mobile up until the very end?
Was he?
I'm pretty sure he was. So what is Mario Kart Tour? It says it's going to. They don't have all the details. It's going to arrive before March, when Nintendo's fiscal year ends. The big question. Let's see here. Okay, there's just more speculation here. Oh boy. It seems likely that Mario Kart Tour will offer a few levels for free, then charge a lump sum to access the full game, like Super Mario Run. It says here, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the second highest selling Switch game to date, behind only Mario Odyssey. That's funny to me, but I guess there are a lot more casual gamers for Mario Odyssey than... Because I would suspect Breath of the Wild to be the number one selling Switch. But if you think about it...
No, you'd be surprised. Well, I thought the same thing with Metroid, how many people I thought was huge Metroid fans, but you find out, you look up the sales, Metroid is not that popular.
Right, no, yeah. Metroid has never been one of Nintendo's strongest IPs. They have a faithful fan base, but, your Marios of the world are going to take, first place. They're going to take the front of that. So that's it for upcoming releases in the first quarter. One last story I wanted to go on, and then I'll shut up, is one that's been in the news cycle now, especially the gaming news cycle for the last couple of weeks. But since we haven't been around in about a month, I figured I'd touch on it because it was pretty significant. Soulja Boy! Soulja Boy selling games, or he was selling game consoles, which he apparently was taking from third-party developers, black market consoles with ROMs built into it, and let's see here. 4 ROM-filled consoles he was selling on his official merch store last month, but now he's pulled all of his video game merch, and nothing has officially been said, but people suspect that he was basically given a cease and desist, a takedown notice, and in a tweet he just said, "I had to boss up, I didn't have a choice." And I'm looking at his handheld one here. It's basically a Game Boy. It looks like a Game Boy Pocket in everything but the name on it. It was on his merch store, Soulja Watch. And the Soulja Game console, the Soulja Game handheld, which I heard somebody say he should have just called it the Soulja Boy. That would have made perfect sense. The handheld one. The Retro Soulja Boy Mini and the Soulja Game Fuse. So he spoke out on Twitter about this, and he even accused it of being people that were calling him out on Twitter. He played the race card, and he tried to say, "Oh, you just don't want to see a black guy succeed in business."
Dude, you were taking.
But yeah,
from what I understand, I think you couldn't sell the ROM part of it, which is illegal. But something about the system, older systems you can sell, some weird.
Well, some of them lose their copyright if they don't re-up.
Yeah, and then he made this lie that he had permission from Nintendo to do some stuff. I'm like, I don't think so, man. You're lying.
It just seems like somebody who was popular a decade ago is just making an attempt to get relevant again. And it worked for a short while.
Yeah, I saw, the Quartering had a good episode. He had Rich Review Tech comment, because Review Tech, because they had the worst stories, or I forgot how he worded it, of 2018, and he had Rags, can't remember the Asian guy's name, and
I haven't watched Rags stuff in a long time.
It's pretty good. I like him. And when he had them do a segment on, Quartering had them do a segment on his show, speaking their part on what they thought was, I guess, the worst of gaming in 2018, and Rich brought up the Soulja Boy thing.
And I say it was like an attempt to gain relevancy. He wasn't even really talked about outside of the gaming community. So, I mean, whatever he was trying to do, trying to move on to something else. So much for that.
yeah, I was like, don't
Yeah, you can't take other people's
don't come back
property.
that way.
I mean, clearly he didn't have anybody. He didn't listen to anybody, or he didn't have anybody to, try to talk him down from it, or he was just too, stubborn.
And of course, we have allowed people to play these victim and race cards when it's not necessary to do so. It just makes you look, people don't take you seriously. It's like, dude, just
Right.
come on, man.
Yeah. I remember Rich from Review Tech said that he had gotten some flack on Twitter from other people because he called out Soulja Boy. And he was just irate with these people. He was just saying, "You go sit in the back. Go sit in timeout." But that's all I have for news.
Well, I have a bit of news. This came out. I guess this is old from. It was new to me. I didn't even know this was going on. Major video game tax passed. Chicago will go towards covering 130 billion in unpaid Chicago pensions. PlayStation gamers are now forced to pay an amusement tax in Chicago as city officials tax everything to cover unfunded public pensions. Gamers were recently notified that they would have to pay a 9% levy 9% levy every time they pay for PlayStation subscription services such as PlayStation Now, PlayStation Plus, and PlayStation Music. Chicago forced the tax on gamers after the city fell $130 billion in pension debt, according to Zero Hedge, bearing real reforms, concessions from the unions, or bankruptcy. Chicagoans can expect to be hit with whatever series of tax hikes politicians will try to enact to reduce the debt, the outlet reported. That $130 billion is the total Moody's calculations when adding up the direct pension debt owed by the city government. Chicago Public Schools, Park District, and Chicago's share of various Cook County governments and the 5 state pension funds. Users on social media reacted negatively to the news, likening the tax to an extortion fee. So it's that article. But damn.
Yeah, so I'm not sure on that. I don't know if I agree with that. Those taxes there. Honestly, I don't know too much about the pensions and whatnot, but I'm pretty nuanced when it comes to taxes and what we should tax and what we shouldn't and how much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not quite sure, my take on that. You know me. I want to tax the rich, but yeah. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know shit about taxes, so I would have to do some research on like the pros and cons of this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of taxes. I understand what they're for, but when it gets to, again, I'm not a tax person. Every time I hear the word tax, I just get,
Well, in certain things, income tax, sales tax, I can understand that. Then you get to argue about the rates, how much it should pay, who should pay, and then you talk about the income brackets based on how much a person makes.
Yeah.
I understand the broader parts of it, and I'm not an anti-tax person, of course, but certain taxes, and of course what the tax money goes towards is where I'm a real stickler. I don't know, do you have anything else on that?
No, like I said, I heard about it today on the YouTube channel I was watching. They brought that up. Like, oh, no. One of the news stories I could bring up during the podcast today. But, yeah, I had to do more research on, 130 billion.
What, anyway, that's the deficit?
I'm done with that. I guess.
Damn.
Just make marijuana legal, like, for real, and just be done with this. I'd rather they just do that. Just make marijuana legal, and Illinois be okay, I think.
Well, you definitely make more jobs and you get more tax revenue through that. because it would be regulated and taxed once it's legalized.
Yeah. So, please make marijuana legal everywhere.
Well, we're slowly getting there, man. I'm waiting for a federal legalization, but
I don't even use the shit, but I'm like, do it. Alcohol is legal. It's see the statistics with that, and yet I don't understand why we're like, whoa, pot so bad. The fuck out of here! Just make it legal now.
Well, Trump's brought it up at least 30 odd times. He's said, "I'll consider legalizing it," and then you don't hear anything about it. And then he'll say it again. I'll consider it. And I get this. He's always been about making more jobs. There's a great way to make more jobs.
Yep.
So that's my take on it. Pretty simple.
Legalize pot, please.
Most people in the country, whatever side you're on, agree with that at this point. Legalize it.
Yeah, just legalize it. I'm down. I don't use it, but do it. Anyway.
Right.
I don't see why not. Make it legal.
Yeah. Anything else for news?
Nope.
So, today's main subject, our top 10 favorite games of all time. Your top 10 and my top 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's start with you.
Sure. My first game. Now, these aren't in any particular order, as I don't have a favorite of top.
Neither are mine.
They're not done in this order to say, oh, this is no one. It's just what I could think of, what I played the most. I think I based my list on memories I had of it when I first played it and how much I played it. The series kind of mean to me when I play it. Other memories I had, college, elementary school, and high school, stuff that I grew up with. That stick with me to this day. Now I'll go back and play again to this day. My first one is Double Dragon 2. A side-scrolling beat-em-up produced by Technos Japan, originally released as a coin-operated arcade game in 1988. It was the first sequel to Double Dragon released during the previous year. The sequel involves Billy and Jimmy Lee, in a mission to avenge their girlfriend Marion, who has been shot to death by the Black Warriors leader Willie. I forgot his name was Willie.
Big Willie.
Who is retaliating against the Lee brothers after his defeat at the end of the previous game. Double Dragon 2 was initially developed as an upgrade kit to the original Double Dragon, but evolved into a standalone game due to the increase in memory size, resulting in developers using assets of both games. And that must be different from, because when it got to the NES, now this is, I'm assuming the Japanese version is probably different than the American version, because in the American version, I'm assuming they're not the same, you go to save her, she's alive in the American version, but they didn't, I guess in this one they killed her off. And the beginning of the game the first Double Dragon used to make me laugh because there's just this chick standing in front of this place, a bunch of dudes walking, just punching the gut and kill her off. That shit is hilarious to me. And then you go fight everybody to get her back. Willie? I don't think I've ever... I can't take somebody's name that's like a leader, that's like a threat, and his name is Willie.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's kind of like everybody in River City Ransom.
Yeah. What was that game on 64? Was it the RPG? Was it called Brian? Or the lead character was named Brian?
I don't know. What kind of game was it?
It was an RPG. It was a kid with like a stick and a cape.
Oh, Quest.
Quest, yeah.
Yeah, there was like one of 2 RPGs on the 64.
Yeah. I just thought the name Brian was so generic for an RPG. RPG names are kind of unique. It's like, fuck it. Brian. But yeah, that's my first favorite game on my list.
All right, well, mine, to no surprise, is Earthbound. Released in 1994 in Japan and 1995 in North America. The only one to, up until the Mother Origins was released, be released officially in America in the Mother series. Is actually the second part of the Mother series. It was released on the Super Nintendo, and it was created by Ape The developing company was Ape Incorporated, which eventually became Creatures Incorporated, which became famous for the Pokemon series. Published by Shigesato Itoi, and it was directed by Shigesato Itoi, and it was published by Itoi and Satoru Iwata, who basically helped Itoi redesign the game from the ground up, because the way that he had been building the game when Iwata approached him wasn't the best, from what I understand. It was clunky, so he said, look, we can either finish this now as it is and have less than acceptable or efficient product, or we can restart and I can have this done in so much time. It's built like a Japanese RPG, but unlike most RPGs at the time, it took place in modern-day America, or at least Itoi's interpretation of America. You battle everything from deranged aging hippies to spacemen, robots, to sentient UFOs, to street signs. The plot is it's pretty basic. You're a group of kid heroes that are trying to save the planet from an alien menace. It's kind of like Chrono Trigger. The game got me personally involved. I first played it, I rented it from Hollywood Video, and I didn't understand it. It always stood out to me because it had that huge box because it included a guidebook. And I wanted to see what it was all about, so I rented it. I wasn't familiar with how RPGs worked at the time, so I didn't get it. But then I ended up renting it some years later, and I loved the crap out of it, but the problem was that I had to take it back. So my dad ended up buying it for me as a surprise, and I've loved the shit out of that game ever since. Now, again, my order's not in any order, just like yours, but it is still my favorite game of all time, and that's the game that got me involved in the online gaming community. I found out about Starman.net, which is one of the most powerful and still one of the largest gaming fan sites around, and they've been around since the late 90s. I still go by there every now and then just to see what's going on. They've also become big fans of the Undertale games. Of course, Toby Fox was inspired to make those games from the Earthbound games, and I've loved those games too. Starman.net, again, I can't say enough about that website. They single-handedly started one of the largest petitions at the time back in the 90s to try and get Nintendo to finish Mother 3 and then release it once they finally did, to get an English release. And it still hasn't received an English release, but there have been, because of fan translators online, translated versions of the Mother 3 ROM. But the whole series, I love. The first one, it's dated. I mean, we're strictly talking about Earthbound, Mother 2. Love that game. I can still play it to this day. It's a lot of fun, and you get a lot of hours out of it. And there's just so much to remember from it. All the characters were memorable. And I'm glad that they brought Ness and Lucas into the Smash Brothers series, because that got a lot of people turned on to the series, and that got a lot of people turned on to Earthbound. So that's my first pick on the list.
What I like about Earthbound, I haven't finished it, is the humor in the game.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of great
dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of everything. Every conversation is worth having.
Yeah. I think when I first saw the game, I never got it back then. And I didn't understand RPGs all that much. But I always liked the graphics of it. But I don't know why I never did hop on it at the time that it came out. But
it's obscure, man. It's a series that's definitely graced with age. Because in the 90s, I'd have a hard time finding anybody who even knew what it was. Which is why I was so grateful for the online community and Starman.net.
I would highly recommend that game. If you've never played Earthbound, highly recommend it.
Yes.
So my next game is The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. It's an action adventure video game developed and published by Nintendo for the Super Nintendo system video game console. It is the third installment of the Legend of Zelda series. and was released in 91 in Japan and 92 in North America and Europe. The plot of A Link to the Past focuses on Link as he travels to a journey to save Hyrule, defeat Ganon, and rescue maidens related to the sages. A Link to the Past uses a 3/4 top-down perspective similar to that of the original Legend of Zelda, dropping the side-scrolling elements of Zelda 2, the Adventure of Link. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past introduced elements to the series that are still commonplace today, such as the concept of an alternate or parallel world, the Master Sword, and other new weapon items. Critics and players alike have commented on the similarities between A Link to the Past and the Nintendo 64 sequel, Ocarina of Time, with some even referring to the latter as a spiritual remake of A Link to the Past. Released to a critical and commercial success, A Link to the Past was a landmark title for Nintendo and is widely considered to be one of the greatest video games of all time. Over 4 million units of the game has been sold worldwide, and A Link to the Past was ported to the Game Boy Advance with slight changes and is available for the Wii, Wii U, and new 3DS via the Virtual Console. Nintendo re-released A Link to the Past in the United States in September 2007 as part of the company's Super NES Classic Edition. A successor to the game titled A Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds was released on the 3DS November 2013, and that is a great game too. I think that was the second Super Nintendo game I had when I was in college. And I remember I played it. When I first saw it, my little cousin was playing it. And what got me liking the game, well, I really liked the first Zelda, but I had a weird thing with sprite animation. And I thought sprite animation in that game was unique at that time, where he didn't just go through, when he went down steps, he didn't just go and it turned to a black screen and it was you saw him fully go around the steps, down the steps. So for some reason that intrigued me. I was like, I got to get that game just to have him walk down the steps. I was a weird kid. But
I still remember the sound.
Yeah. But the first night I got it, I played this. I stayed up from the time I got home to like 3 or 4 in the morning until I got all 3 medallions of the first top part of the game. And then it was like the game just kept giving you good. It just kept feeling new. Everything you did in the game kept you going. So it's a fantastic game. So that's my second.
Also, the game to feature a character with probably the most hardest to pronounce name. The old wise man.
Yeah.
And the first time I played that game when I was a kid, I remember after you beat the first dungeon, you were supposed to go back and talk to him, and he would give you the running boots. And I didn't do that because when I was a kid, I didn't like talking. I just wanted action. Right. And I was stuck. I was stuck for months. It might not have been months, but it felt like it at the time. I didn't realize you had to knock the book off the shelf in the village. Oh,
yeah. I remember getting stuck in, I think, one of the last dungeons. And it took me at least 3 to 5 days to figure out why I couldn't get out of this room. And I just forgot to kill an enemy. And the key showed up. And it was like, oh, really, man?
Apparently there's a way to actually get stuck in the game and have to restart. I think if you use a key in the wrong place, you just can't get any more and you have to restart the game. There's no way around it.
Okay.
But yeah, I love the fuck out of A Link to the Past. I would really have to think about it to do a ranking of my top favorite Zeldas. It's definitely in the top 3 though. Also, that was the Zelda that really introduced like a lot of the modern locations and concepts that we still have, like Kakariko Village and Lake Hylia.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you'd recommend this game, and I'd recommend this game to anybody who hasn't played it.
I think I have this game on 3 systems.
Damn.
Got the original That's how much I love this game. I have it on. I got the original cartridge for my Super Nintendo. Then I have it on my 3DS and the Wii U. I have it on Wii U. It was like $1.50 because some membership thing I think I had that gave me a discount. So I got the game on 3 fucking platforms just for shits and giggles, and we don't have to have all 3, but.
Well, as a collector, I can understand. I mean, I'm not much of a collector compared to you. I don't consider myself much of a collector at all. I want to start doing that again, though. But I've been thinking of buying the Super Nintendo Classic because they're going to stop production again.
Yeah, I saw. I think last time I went to Walmart, I was so shocked that they had a nice supply of them there, but I was like, I don't need it, but. Yeah, if you can find one, I should snatch that up as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm. And they're also discontinuing the NES Mini. At least for now.
Goddamn Nintendo.
Yeah, it is surprising to see a desired Nintendo product in supply on shelves.
Nintendo. They're like I said, that battered wife syndrome. It's like, you're so good to me, and then you beat your ass, and then you threaten to leave him, but then he says, I'm sorry, and then you get pulled back in some kind of way, and only to get smacked in the face again after you've given your love back to them. They find some way to piss you off, only to then bring you back in, and goddamn Nintendo.
Yes, Nintendo, love and hated.
Hated, yeah.
Loved and hated. At the same time by many people. The abusive husband of the video game world.
It just went to, like I said, it's like sometimes they do something on the Switch. I'm like, then when I heard they want to work, hopefully they hold true to this. They're not going to censor that Dead or Alive game, Extreme Volleyball. I'm like, oh, okay. God damn it. Pull me back in out there. They make me mad sometimes.
Yeah. They've been on a good streak lately, though, so let's hope that things hold out for a while longer.
No, they won't. They'll find something stupid to do and then fix that and be a cuck for them. I am a Nintendo cuck at this point, though.
It's hard to stay away, man. It's part of your childhood. It's ingrained in us.
Yeah. God, I remember the first Nintendo commercial, I was like 11, I think, 1985. Been hooked ever since.
Well, did you have anything else on A Link to the Past?
No. I also recommend, if you have a 3DS, get A Link Between Worlds. It's similar to that game, but it's some new mechanics and stuff. And the ending made me cry.
Yeah, I need to play that.
It's a really good game.
Way past due. I need to buckle down, get a 3DS, and just get the game on top of a million others. So my next pick is Galaga. A classic, released in 1981. I love me some Galaga, dude. I will still go to a laundromat and play it if it's there.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's one of the few games. It's Galaga and Pac-Man. You know, Namco's still representing out in the lobbies and the laundromats of the world. You can still find them here and there.
Oh, okay.
And I've also owned the game on various different platforms over the years. So, developed and published by Namco Japan and Midway in the U.S., it is a sequel to 1979's Galaxian, which, thank God, because Galaxian, I liked the idea they basically built off of, both of these games built off of Space Invaders.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that Galaga was the perfection of that type of game because everything was so much smoother and fast-paced. Galaxian was just too clunky for me. It was, of course, like I said, influenced by Space Invaders. Laundromats and truck stops, man, that's where you got to go to get it. The big thing that annoyed me was the abduction ships. I believe they were called the Galaxians.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know for a long time that you could get your fighter back, your ship back, and get a double blaster ability, basically. And then, of course, when you did that, now I do it every time. I let him abduct him, and then I just take him back. But I didn't realize that. And the thing that's frustrating is you can shoot your own guy by accident.
Yeah.
Or if you kill the Galaxian ship while they're at the top of the screen, then your own ship just becomes an enemy, and you have to kill it. And then the bonus rounds were always fun. It's a fun game. There's really not much else to say about it. You have to see it and play it. For I guess the X or the Generation Y and Z kids that may not know what it is at this point. Although I'd imagine a lot of you do, because your parents have probably told you about it or you've seen it somewhere. It can't be explained any more than that. You have to play it.
I would also recommend Galaga Legions DX. I think Special Edition or DX. I have one. I think I had both on the PlayStation. I'm sorry, Xbox 360. It's something like what they did with Pac-Man Champion. And then Namco went through this streak where they were updating past games. They did Galaga Legion, or Galaga. It's called Galaga Legions DX. Plays basically the same way as Galaga, but just updated graphics. Still fun. It still plays like Galaga, and I recommend that too. I don't know if it's on Steam or not. I would assume it came out like 2010 and 11, so 2008.
There were a lot of remakes and updates to Galaga. One that I used to see in arcades was Galaga 3. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I think I do, yeah.
Yeah, I remember enjoying it, but it just...
They
didn't make as many consoles. I'm not sure when Galaga 3 came out. After 81? That's all I know for sure.
Oh.
Let's see. Let me pull that real quick. 1984.
Okay. How did I not play that? Why was I playing in 84? Because I was always at the arcade. I was either playing Miss Pac-Man, Burger Time, Joust, Popeye, Tempest, at Star Wars, Centipede, Millipede, Donkey Kong. Yeah, I probably somehow didn't play Galaga 3. I never played that.
It says in Japan it was originally published as Gapless, but then when they brought it to the U.S., they changed it to Galaga 3, and it seems likely to increase name recognition. Although there was never a Galaga 2. They were probably just thinking like Galaxian's the first one, then Galaga, then, well, let's just skip it like Final Fantasy did and just call it 3.
Right. Okay.
Well, that's all I've got on Galaga.
Attack of the Zolgear was a sequel to Galaga. Nothing like that. Okay. 94. All right. My next game is Jet Set Radio. Japan was Jet Set Radio, and America was Jet Grind Radio. As an action game developed by SmileBit and published by Sega for the Dreamcast in 2000. The player controls one of the gang of youths who skate the streets of a fictionalized Tokyo on inline skates, spraying graffiti and evading the authorities. Evading authorities. It's one of the first games to use cel shading visuals, giving it a cartoon-like appearance. A version by Vicarious Visions was released by THQ for Game Boy Advance on June 26, 2003. I kind of remember that. In North America on February 20th, 2004 in Europe. A sequel, Jet Set Radio Future, was released in 2002 on the Xbox. In 2012, a high-definition port was released for multiple platforms. I remember end up importing the Japanese version because Game Trader, Brian had the game playing, and the music in there was like, oh my God. And there's an inline spray painting, you can paint graffiti. I was like, that's unique. And end up getting a copy of that. Then I think I got the North American when it came out, but that's a pretty fun game. I really enjoyed that. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I definitely like the sequel to it too when it came to Xbox, Just Set Radio Future. But the the way the game was designed plus the music, it's one of the really unique games. I wish they would do more of these but a lot of people, I guess at the time, weren't fans of cell shading stuff. So,
well, you remember how hard it was to win people over with Wind Waker.
Oh yeah.
That was a bold move, and it worked. I remember the first time I saw Jet Set Radio, I had an issue with the cell shading graphics. But yeah.
I love the hell out of it. I was like, I guess because I'm an artist, and I like anything that's kind of different when somebody takes a direction artistically with video games into a territory that's normally not used. So I did not always appreciated the cell shading stuff in video games.
Yeah, that was like an early art game in a lot of ways, because a lot of the motivation in the gaming industry up to that point was, well, let's just make them more advanced, better graphics.
Yeah.
And then finally somebody said, well, let's see what we can do as far as being creative. Not that they were the first to do that, but
right.
It was one of the most popular ones. So yeah, I liked the cell shading. Looking back at the time, I was thinking, oh, come on, we want polygons, we want more advanced looking graphics, or I wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I didn't have the console at the time, so that one slipped past me.
Yeah, it's
well, no, Parappa did that. Parappa did that first, though.
Did it?
Well, the characters in that were like 2D cutouts, though.
Yeah, this one was fully like cell shaded 3D models with the cartoony look to it, though.
Right.
And you being able to use inline skates, ride on rails, get spray paint, and paint graffiti in the way the controls were at the time before they did. Just that Radio Future had it. I think you just held a button down against a skate pass, and it was like I'm trying to mimic the controls. Because in Jet Set Radio, you had to swing the analog stick in the direction of how you were painting the spray paint. So, like, if the arrow did a curve right, you had to make the analog stick go that way or point up and spray paint that way, and try to avoid the cops at the same time. And it was like a fun game to just kind of skate around into. It wasn't so much free roaming, but it was not really confined that much either.
Right.
But I love the shit out of that game. It's one of my favorite games, top favorite games. So.
Now, were they the same ones that did that, what was it, Space Channel?
Did Smile Big do Space Channel 5? I know after...
Was it the same company? Because stylistically, I just remember them being similar.
Just Space Channel 5 was not cell shaded. It had, I think, just brightly lit colors. It had more pastel-y.
Yeah, this is my flawed memory trying to go back to that. So, take that as it is.
Yeah, they weren't so much. No, did they do that? No, they did. Panzer Dragoon Order. Just a Red Future Gun Valkyrie was cell shaded too. I think they did that. Panzer Dragoon was really good. Yeah, Smile Bit did do that one. I didn't know that. Why don't I know that? I thought they closed down. I thought they got closed down about before the Xbox. I guess they did. Okay. So Smile Bit did Panzer Dragoon Order, which is excellent. It's a good Dragon.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I would put that on my list too, but it was like, it's only supposed to be 10. That's one of my favorites.
It was hard making the list.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But yeah, that's my thoughts on Jet Set Radio. One of my top favorite games of all time.
I'd say more, but I never played it, but I've never heard a bad opinion on it. Speaking of having never played, were you done with that one?
Yeah, I'm done.
Speaking of never having played, we'll take it and turn it around now. GoldenEye.
Yeah, I'm the only person on the planet. If you weren't born, well, my daughter probably even played it, and I don't know it. I've never played the game. And I've not heard anything bad about that game. Everybody praises that game. I'm like, I was just not into first person shooters back then, and but everybody loved the shit out of GoldenEye, and I just might have to play it someday on some kind of.
You're gonna have to buy an old
Nintendo.
64 at this point.
Yeah, I don't think there's. I don't think. I thought that. Well, there were rumors of a 64 coming out, a mini, but I'm not sure if that's true or not, or if they decide not to do that. But
Well, Reggie denied that there's any upcoming news on a 64 mini for the time being.
Yeah, I would suspect if there was isn't a licensing issue, I would suspect GoldenEye would be on that system.
Well, that's the thing now. Rare's, I believe, still exclusively signed with Microsoft.
Right.
Rare being the company that developed the game. But GoldenEye was released originally in 97. Rare was at its peak during that time. It was riding high on games like Banjo-Kazooie, and had previously done the Donkey Kong Country games. It was a first-person shooter based on the James Bond movie GoldenEye, which the game was much better than the movie. And it revolutionized first-person shooters. I mean, it really started with Wolfenstein 3D and Doom, but GoldenEye took it to the next level. It had body point detection system. It could detect headshots. It had an auto-aim feature. It had an objective-based mission system for single player, and it had a really killer multiplayer with up to 4 players.
Split.
And I used to play it every day with my buddies after middle school when we get out. The single-player mode, like I said, was great. Maneuvering took a lot of work to really figure out how to do it effectively. One of the things that people always pointed out, and the developers actually came out, I had said this previously on another episode, you could play as Oddjob in multiplayer. For people not familiar with James Bond, Oddjob was one of the villains. He was a short Asian man that had a hat that he would throw with built-in spikes.
Yeah.
And of course, Oddjob, like I said, was short, so he was a harder shot. He was harder to get. He'd just run around and take you out, and you couldn't get a headshot. And then on the other end, you could play as Jaws, another James Bond villain, who was massive, and he was an easier target. But the developers came out and admitted, in their opinion, that yes, Oddjob is cheating. And all of us just rolled our eyes because we already knew that. There were a couple of unlockable final missions. One from Moonraker, the old James Bond film, and the other one was... What was it? You played in the rocket station from Moonraker, and then the other one was in a temple, I think, but that might have been the same mission. I can't remember, but it was also from another James Bond, an older James Bond movie. And that game actually got me into James Bond. Like, I started binge watching the movies after that.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen the newer James Bonds, the ones with Daniel Craig yet, though. Although I do want to see the newest one, the latest one, because they've got Christoph Waltz in there, and he's a great fucking actor, if you ask me. He was in, he was in a couple of, he's mostly a German. He started in the German film industry, but, I don't want to get too far off topic, but he did a couple of Tarantino films. He was the double agent in Inglourious Basterds, and then he played the bounty hunter in Django. And, yeah, he played the villain in the last James Bond flick. But if you can get I was just going to say, if you can get your hands on GoldenEye, it hasn't aged the best.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a newbie coming into it, I don't know how you're going to receive the game, but I would say give it a shot.
I think I was watching because of my mom. I always watch old movies, so I got into the James Bond movies. Not huge fan, but I've always enjoyed the movies. I think what was the first one I saw? It was, of course, the Sean Connery ones, but the one with Christopher Walken was the villain in it. And I think Grace Jones was in it.
It's been so long since I've seen him, I don't remember which one. I'd imagine that was a more, like, 90s, more recent one.
I think it was, like, late 80s or something. But anyway.
The Living Daylights, I'm not sure.
But, yeah, I remember watching that one. and it was going back to watch the iconic ones, and then the one with the newer ones with fuck
Pierce Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan, yeah. I think I stopped at him.
Yeah, that's where I stopped too.
But anyway, back on topic. I think it's your turn.
No, I just did GoldenEye.
Oh, good. That was yours. Oh, okay.
That's pretty much it for me with GoldenEye, though.
Mine is Soul Calibur.
The original.
Yes. Although they kept improving on the series. This first one, though, is, again, around the time Dreamcast came out, Jet Set Radio and all this. The game looked better than the arcade version. Huge fighting game fan. This was like perfect launch title for the Dreamcast. It is a weapon-based fighting game franchise by Bandai Namco Entertainment. There are several main installments of the video game and various media spin-offs, including music albums and a series of manga books. Originally released as an arcade game, Soul Edge, which was the first game I played in the series. It was on the original PlayStation. Soul Edge in '95 and ported to video games consoles. Most recent versions have been released for consoles only and have evolved to include online playing modes. The central motif of the series, set in a historic fantasy version of late 16th and early 17th centuries, are mythical swords, evil weapon called Soul Edge, and the subsequent sword used to oppose the evil Soul Calibur. While it was developed during its various iterations, some of the characters and gameplay elements have remained consistent throughout the series, and is one of the most popular and successful franchises in the fighting game genre. Project Soul is the internal Namco development team responsible for Soul Calibur franchise after the release of Soul Calibur 2. Although the games are usually simply credited to Namco itself, the team established its name to draw attention to the group's combined accomplishments.
So,
yeah, man.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I've played at various times with different people that happen to have one of the games, and I've always had a good time. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, it is.
And I always like the characters and how they added in characters from other franchises down the way.
I think one of the things that me and my cousin, we used to play the shit out of Soul Edge, was the sword blur, or the weapon blurs. Because I did not like weapon-based games, fighting games too much. I always like the hands-on stuff, but the way the sword, the swords or the whip or whatever had that blur or that wave when you swing it, had the colorful. That was unique, real unique at the time, and that always kept me playing just to see that happen. But I think by the time Soul Calibur 2, Soul Calibur, not Soul Edge, Soul Calibur came out on Dreamcast, I was like, I played the hell out of that game. Knew every character's move pretty much. His favorite character is Kalik. It's the guy with the bow staff, and Ivy. She has the whip sword thing, and Taki.
Oh, she's got more than that.
Oh yeah. Ivy is fucking gorgeous.
I'm not even that experienced with the series, but yeah, I know Ivy.
Everybody knows Ivy. Yeah, my top three favorites is Kalik, Ivy, and Taki.
What a game series, and so impressive too as far as graphics go. One of the more colorful fighters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was always a visually very beautiful game.
Yeah, it was one of the only few games for me to top Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat was Soul Calibur. So, yeah, it's probably my first and second favorite fighting franchise. When I play Street Fighter and then I play Soul Calibur, I kind of get the two, like, my two top ones, but Soul Calibur tends to edge it out. So Street Fighter for me a little bit sometimes, just because of the moves, the set of moves, and it's just the way it looks. Yeah, that's one of my favorite game series. So
cool. You got anything else?
No.
All right. So my next one is not an unpopular opinion by any stretch of the imagination. Super Metroid.
Mm-hmm.
Made by Nintendo, released in '94 on the Super Nintendo. We've talked about this game before on the show.
Yeah.
It's just pure fun. There's not a dull moment that I can think of offhand.
And the music, oh my God, the music.
Yeah, the music is fantastic. It's atmospheric. I remember my dad, when I was little, playing the game, who never played or was ever into video games, he would say, "What's that one with the great soundtrack?" He would comment on that. He'd watch me play it sometimes, and he'd just comment on how dark it was, how well it fit the atmosphere, and at the same time, there were numbers that were upbeat. I still love the theme to Bryn Star, both themes to Bryn Star. And then the game popularized, it really set the ground for a lot of closed world exploration games afterwards, like, as they always call Metroidvanias. Mm-hmm. And, Super Metroid along with Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I haven't seen many games that have mastered the controls to be so damn on like that game did also, Super Metroid. I love the upward angle controls, the jumping, the wall bounces, the speed charge, or whatever they called it. You know what I'm talking about. What did they call that, where you would run, squat, and then you could shoot off like a rocket?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you didn't need those to beat the game, but they were there, and you could learn. And then, of course, the animals taught you, and then, of course, that's always been the big talking point in the speed runs and the AGDQ speed runs. You either save the animals or kill the animals.
Yeah.
I rented it first. I still remember it was the video rental section at the front of the Deerbergs when I was a kid, which people that aren't in St. Louis or the region, that's a grocery store chain. And years later, I got it. I don't remember how I got it, but I got it. And I would play it at my grandma's house. And funny thing, my grandma is a former gamer. She and I used to play Nintendo and Super Nintendo games, and we'd be competitive with each other. I'd be playing at the same time, and we'd see who would get there first. And I was a kid, no job, so I'd be playing all day. She was retired, no job, so she'd be playing whenever she had the time. Yeah, the bosses were great, Some of them, at this point, everything in the game for someone like you or I'd imagine, is incredibly easy because we've been through it in and out so many times.
Mm-hmm.
I love the speedrunning community that's grown around it, the different ways that people have been able to manipulate the layout, get to certain areas that they weren't intended to. And I've seen different breakdowns of the game's progression. And one guy who I've mentioned before on YouTube, Mark Brown, he's got a channel called Game Maker's Toolkit, where he analyzes the layouts of different games. He did a really good one on Super Metroid about how the game, at some times it holds your hand, and then at different points it lets you go on your own. And it's just it's a good balance of teacher versus being independent and figuring things out for yourself. I fucking love Super Metroid, and I think that people today, I think it's as replayable today as it was 20 years ago.
Well, I used to beat it, play it again, beat it, play it again, beat it, play it again.
Yeah, it doesn't get old.
No.
It still doesn't get old.
Goats. I watch a guy on Twitter named Oats and Goats. He speed runs it. I think I think he's one of the top 3 Metroid speedrunners. Yeah, yeah, that game is fucking awesome.
And I'm trying to think. The Prime games are good, and of course, you've given your approval of the Metroid 2 remake. And of course, there was Zero Mission and Fusion. I just still, of course, I haven't played the 2 remake, Samus Returns, but from my experience with any other Metroid game before or after that, to me they don't rank as high as Super Metroid.
That's kind of how I feel with Link to the Past, other than Ocarina of Time.
Yeah,
because I feel like Link to the Past is as much like the other games. Like every time I think which one I would go back most to, would always be a Link to the Past. I'm like that with Metroid games. I normally would go right back to playing Super Metroid. But no question. If I had to pick a Metroid game to play, I would always go back to playing Super Metroid.
Yeah, they hit everything right. That was really just master.
The commercial for it back when it first got released, and the first time I saw the speed run boost where she runs when you get not where she just lands and goes right, just her running and that blur behind it. I was like, oh, I got to get it.
Yeah.
I had no idea the game was going to be that fucking good, but just because of that little animation, because again, I was weird with animation on sprites and characters and stuff. I just thought that was so fluid looking. I was like, I want to play the game just to do that. And the game is amazing.
Yeah, now Nintendo's not in charge of development themselves anymore. They've lent that out to, what's the company called?
Oh, wait, for the Metro Primes or just the...
Well, did it vary based on which type of Metroid game it was?
Good question.
So it says Metroid Prime 4 is developed and published by Nintendo. Let's see. Retro Studios did the first Prime.
Retro.
But yeah, that's all I have to say on the game. I've said it before, and I'll probably say it again.
Oh yeah, it's
one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's not just our take on it. I've seen this, and I know you've seen this in so many other different rankings and lists. It usually pops up in either number 1 or number 2.
My next game is Contra 3: The Alien Wars, released in Japan as Contra Spirits and in PAL regions as Super Probotector Alien Rebels. Probotector is a 1992 run and gun video game for the Super Nintendo, developed and published by Konami. It is the third console iteration of the Contra series, followed by the original Contra in '87 and Super C '88 for the NES. Nintendo re-released Contra 3: The Alien Wars in the United States September 17th as part of the company's Super NES Classic Edition. Oh, okay. Yeah, one of my favorite run and gun shooters of all time, next to, I guess, the first Contra.
Oh yeah, and the first Contra was the fucking
But this game blew me out the water with the music. This is the game I hooked up to for me to record. At the time, I would record my games. I would hook up a VCR, hook the VCR up to a sound system, and so I could give me. I didn't know the sound chip in the Super Nintendo was like the way it is back then. That was a big deal, and the fucking game blew my speakers out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, and I don't remember. I always had it loud, but not loud enough to. I don't know. I guess I played it so much, but again, that particular game, I don't know what it was with the music. I don't know if it was louder than most games or what it was with the sound chip in this game, but it was the music in the game was so fantastic. But yeah, Fuck my speakers up.
Well, I've played it. I basically own it on a goof. My friend, he also, when he was living in the house with me, he had a Super Nintendo and some games, and he just never took the games with him after he moved.
Yeah.
So, by coincidence, I have a copy of it myself, and I haven't beaten it, but I've played it a couple times with friends. It's a lot of fun. I played like the first 3 levels. One criticism I did have was the second level was that top down.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the top-down levels.
Yeah,
thankfully only had maybe 2. Yeah, I did not care for those 2.
Well, it was a bold move for them at the time. I mean, the first Contra also experimented with the the moving forward sections where you had to break through the doors,
Right.
which was basically as close as they could get to 3D at the time. The top down, though, it seemed they were too ambitious for the limited technology for what they were trying to do.
But they seem to have gotten it right in Super C. There's this side-scrolling stage when you first play Super C, and I think the second or third stage is a top-down. And that was on the on the regular Nintendo, and it seemed to have gotten, for some reason they got it right there, but when it came to the Super Nintendo version, I don't know, it just felt weird.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't get that. The second top-down stage where you had the stage where the boss spins around, like I had to quickly kill that thing because I would get dizzy.
Yeah, it was disorienting.
Why would they do this?
And it was hard to understand exactly what was going on, again, because of the pixelated graphics. Your 16-bit limitations.
I would get the Game Genie, pop that thing in there, and just bomb top-down levels because I'm not, fuck that. But other than that, despite those 2 stages, I think one of my favorite run-and-gun games ever.
And America's favorite run-and-gun game, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, people
I would say,
Contra.
especially the first one where you got the... and this game, I think, came out kind of close to the time Castlevania... When did Castlevania 4 come out? I know around the time I got them.
I think that was...
got in this game.
Yeah.
And Castlevania 4 around that time. So, God, Super Nintendo back in the day was so fucking good, man. And the Konami code I don't think worked in this game, but I remember the first Contra, though. Yeah. I love that series, though.
Now, was that
was it.
You fought some really freaky shit in Contra. I remember some of the bosses. Wasn't there like a giant baby? Or like this monster
I'm thinking
baby?
What's that? I know Super C had... That might have been... I'm trying to think of one. He had like a creature with like a human face. They always had... Konami did Silent Hill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like... some of the creatures in Silent Hill kind of remind me of some of the stuff from Contra. Like they had all these weird kind of odd creatures in their games.
Well, when did they get Kojima? Was he? They had him for a long time, right? Was he involved with the Contra games?
I don't think so. I know he did Snatcher for Sega CD, and then he did the Metal Gear games, but I don't know what involvement he had in terms of Super Nintendo. I'm not sure what he did. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, that's my one of my favorite games of all time. It's Contra 3.
All right. Well, my next one is... Now, a lot of people would probably disagree with me and go with the next one in this series after this, but my next entry is Final Fantasy VI. Was not my first RPG, but it was the first Final Fantasy that I really got into. and it was released in '94 for the Super Nintendo, of course, made by Square. The thing for me is Final Fantasy up until 6, and I've tried several times to go back to these games, but they were unplayable. They were too old school. They were too clunky. But by the time I got to Final Fantasy VI, by the time I stumbled on that game, it was just a perfect combination of new and old. To me, it really bridged the gap because it sped up the walking speed for one, which is a big thing for me with old RPGs. A lot of the old JRPGs, you were so slow. The plot, I'd recognize the plot from different like fan art and fan pages once I started playing the game, and I realized, oh, that's where these guys came from. Characters, soundtrack, in a lot of ways, it has so much. The game has so much character, like Earthbound, but they took it to an even further degree. Everybody was over the top. There were, I think, 16 playable characters, and they all had good backstories, and they were all memorable. Except for Realm, she was kind of annoying. The little girl that could draw anything.
Yeah.
But the villains were great, like Ultros, the comic villain, the octopus, the purple octopus, and then of course Kefka, which I still would rank as one of my favorite villains of all time, especially in the terms of Final Fantasy. And I was saying, people probably, a lot of them don't agree with me on Final Fantasy because a lot of people, they always go to 7. Because that in a lot of ways was the Final Fantasy, that was the RPG that got a lot of Americans into RPGs. And of course, to avoid some confusion, I know I've been calling it 6. When it was first released here, they called it 3 because some games didn't get ported over from Japan, and to keep with continuity, they kept it at a 3. But it was a new game in the series. Anyway, the combat system was smooth. I believe it was one of the first Final Fantasies to have the active time battle system, where you had to fight or otherwise the enemies would just keep attacking you. What else can I say? The soundtrack was amazing. And keep in mind, I didn't get into this game when it first came out. I came back some years later in the early 2000s and got into it. Had I stumbled across it past that, I don't know. I don't know what I would have thought of it. It's a long play. It's got a great story. You genuinely love and hate Kefka because he's always entertaining. He's always doing something funny, but he's a psychopath, and he just relentlessly kills people in cold blood just to, for his agenda. And then, of course, there's a second world after you reach the halfway point in the game, because he basically destroys the world and completely changes it, so then you have to get your party back together. Oh, spoiler alert. And you have to take on, a ridiculous final battle, which was a disappointment in a way, but still, the final battle is over the top, insane, just like a lot of things in the game. That's what I've got on that one.
It's been so long since I played that one. My first, I probably told you this before, Mystic Quest.
Oh, yeah.
Was my first Final Fantasy game I tried out because I was like, I want to give RPGs a chance. And that was the one I got like, fuck RPGs. And then
that's unfortunate.
And then 7 came out. Final Fantasy 7 came out. There was so much hype around that game. I was like, all right, let me try to get back into this. What is it with this game that's so... And I loved it. But it also did introduce me and get me to try the older Final Fantasy games as well as RPGs overall. So...
now, how far back have you gone with Final Fantasy?
I remember when they did now this was on PlayStation when they had the collection version. So I want to say the one that came packaged, it had like, I can't remember Final Fantasy. It came with Chrono Trigger, one of the Final Fantasy games. It was either 5 or 6.
Yeah, I had that on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
compilation.
okay, yeah. So that's when I was playing those older ones, was because of that. That collection, I think it came with a soundtrack. I think it had a second collection that came with the game itself and the soundtrack to the game, which I still have somewhere. But I wouldn't mind playing those old ones. I'll go back to playing those again. I always have a appreciation for those sprite RPGs.
Yeah. And you can see that there's still a huge base for that now with games like Octopath Traveler being as successful as they have been, which was, again, by Square. Yeah, and also, fuck Final Fantasy VIII. I just always have to say that when Final Fantasy comes up.
I love 9.
Yeah, 9 was great.
Forgettable to me. I don't hate 8.
Except the Gunblade.
Yeah, the Gunblade was good. I don't hate 8, but it left me... I remember beating it. I was happy I beat it. And I remember trading it in. After I beat it, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it didn't have any lasting value.
Especially after the emotional roller coaster I had with 7, 8 just kind of felt like, we got to make an 8, so play it, and then it's like, okay. Then 9 really was really cool. I was like, finally, it felt like it went back to its RPG roots. It had that RPG feel. It felt like a Final Fantasy game that I guess after playing other RPGs at that time too, it had that feel that I liked and an RPG, and I thought 9 really did a good job with that.
Yeah, and they went back to their medieval roots, while also keeping the mechanics good.
So I don't hate 8 as much, but I would never play 8 again. I don't really give a shit about it.
Now, I never beat 9 because I borrowed it from a friend and he didn't have the 3rd disc for whatever reason.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. But didn't the game come full circle with the original Final Fantasy at the end?
Dude, I haven't played. Oh.
Because I thought like the final villain was connected to Garland. I don't know if you remember Garland. He was the first. He was the final boss in the first Final Fantasy. And he's the first boss you fight also.
It's been a while. I was play it again. I saw somebody speedrun it not too long ago. Or they were playing it. I don't think they speedrun it. I saw them playing it not too long ago. It made me want to play it at some point again. Every time I play a game, I think about Bjork's. What CD was that? The one she did the movie soundtrack to. I think I had that at the same time I bought that game. Every time I played it, music CD, I was thinking about when I played Port 9. Or vice versa.
Which Bjork album was that?
That's the one she did the movie to. The only movie she did. It was the soundtrack
Dancer in the Dark?
Yeah. It's just her, like, in this... She's got on glasses. It looks kind of pixelated on the cover. Or... Not she knows crazy covers, but... I gotta find the name of it. Anyway, it was the album she did the movie soundtrack for. What was that album on it? Anyway.
But yeah. Final Fantasy VI.
My next game is Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Oh, you went with Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were going to do 4. I wanted to do 4, but 2 and like Symphony of the Night and Castlevania 4 are like I can play both to this day. I love them both. It's hard for me to say if I was stuck on an island which one I would pick. If I had to go with soundtrack, though, I definitely would go 4, soundtrack-wise. But
yeah,
as far as the game itself, if I had to choose, I couldn't tell you. It's a Symphony of the Night Castlevania. It's a platform adventure role-playing game developed and published by Konami in '97. for the PlayStation. It was directed and produced by Toru, T-O-U, T-O-R-U Hagihari.
Toru?
With Koji Igarashi acting as assistant director. It is a direct sequel to Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which I think I have on. If that's a Sega game, I think I do have that. Yeah, I think I got Rondo of Blood on. I got that somewhere. I think it was a Sega game. Sega Castlevania.
Now, Rondo. Yeah, real quick. Rondo of Blood, was that the one with the ridiculous final battle? Where you had to jump from platform to platform? That might have been Dracula X.
Which I also have too. Let me see what Rondo. But let me read this first, and then I'll get back to Rondo.
Yeah.
Taking place 4 years later, it features Dracula's Dhampir, D-H-A-M-P-R.
Oh, Dhampir.
Dhampir, son of Alucard, as the protagonist rising from the slumber to explore the Dracula's castle, which has reappeared as after Richard Belmont has vanished. It marks a break from previous games in the series, introducing exploration, non-linear level design, and role-playing elements. Initially, the game was unsuccessful, particularly in the United States, where it was meagerly publicized, but thanks to the praise by critics, it gained sales through word of mouth. It sure did. I remember I was not so much into... I was still getting used to 3D games, and when anybody made a 2D game, I hopped right on this game immediately. Plus, it was a Castlevania game. But I had no idea it was going to be like this fucking good. But I remember it wasn't that very popular at the time. Word of mouth. It has been released for several consoles and is considered a sleeper hit, a cult classic, and one of the best video games ever made. Yes, it is one of the fucking best video games ever made. I remember playing the holy hell out of that game. I remember leveling up as far as I could go, and then I went to Fall Dragon, because you didn't have to immediately go to the boss. You could always keep fighting and get level. I know a lot of people that played it that way, that I didn't know that had the game, played it, leveled up as high as they can get, and then they ultimately went to go fight the final boss. But I cannot praise that game enough. It's one of my favorite Castlevania games ever. Games, period, ever.
There's so much to do.
Yeah.
And then there's the entire second half of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert. Yeah,
I highly recommend this game. If you never played Castlevania Symphony, please play that. That is a fantastic game.
It's a good one. You can start with that game, too, if you haven't played a Castlevania game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for, if you're not familiar with the series, that's fine. Because there's a good chance if you like that game, you've played other games like it. Since there's been a whole genre inspired by it.
Yeah.
And all the Castlevania games since have pretty much used that same system, right?
Oh, last one I have on Xbox 360. No, actually, I think because...
Well, except for Castlevania 64, but,
almost rather... Never mind. That game could eat 3 dicks. That was such a shitty game. I think because at the time when they went to the 2D route, and I think it didn't make as much, I think they started doing the 3D versions. Like, what's the Castlevania game that I have on PlayStation 2? Like, I want to play, and that's like 3D. It's better than the 64 version by far. But I think they went back to that whole Metrovania thing when they went to the Game Boy Advance stuff. I think by that time, I think people started to... I remember it was a point, too, if I remember correctly, you couldn't find Symphony of the Night on PlayStation. And then people were demanding it. I remember if I remember, it forget. I think they re-released it in some form before they put it on like the later consoles that we have now. But yeah, word of mouth actually did get people to get in this game because again, you couldn't find it at some point. I remember there was kind of a demand for it, and I think they ended up re-releasing it, if I'm not mistaken. That's so long ago, though. Goddamn, I love the game. But yeah, that's it. All I have for this game. I can't praise it enough.
Yeah, I finally got access to the game recently, as I've said before, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. All right, my next one, Toe Jam and Earl, which they're coming out with a new title very soon. But the original one's the one I'm talking about, and that was released on the Sega Genesis in 1991. It was developed by Johnson Vorsanger Productions. Well, that just rolls right off the tongue. So basically you play as two aliens from the planet, Toe Jam and Earl, from the planet Funkatron. Funk, not fuck. And that would have been interesting. It's like a pervert remake that could be from the planet they're here to get their fuck on.
That sounds like
a great idea.
Well, what's that shit the girls sit on? Sibian?
Huh?
Like
oh, yeah, the Sibian.
Yeah, like you could... A Funkatron would probably... Funkatron would be like some cheap version of that thing. If it was a thing.
Yeah, a cheap one that plays like Parliament and Funkadelic. But no, these... So the plot is that these two aliens, they're on a spaceship and they crash land on planet Earth because they're dingbats, and then the game consists of one or both of you, because it had a two-player option that was a lot of fun, exploring the planet and getting the pieces of your ship back one by one. And every level you had people that could give you advice, people walking around dressed as carrots for whatever reason. You had evil, possessed mailboxes and crazy doctors out to kill you. Let's see. I mean, every level was randomly generated except for like level 1 and level 0. Everything after that was random. It ramped up the difficulty as you went, and I never beat it, but because the challenge just gets to be so much. And then you have an item system where you get present boxes, and you don't know what's in the boxes until you open it. And it could be anything from money to an extra life to instant death. And you could pay people. You'd pick up money as you went. And you would pay people to identify what's in a present for you. And then the humor was always there. The characters, they would always make comments, especially if it was two players. They would say things to each other as you were riding elevators, because you'd have to get in an elevator and go from one level to the next. And they just say something random, and then usually one of them would say something back to him, smart ass, like, "Shut up, Earl. You don't know what you're talking about." And they made a sequel, which was a side-scroller, because the first one was a top-down. The second one was fun, but it didn't have the same charm as the first. The levels were pre-scripted. The soundtrack for both games were pretty good. I'm just glad to see that they they're keeping with the series. There's a demand for it, and that they're going to bring back a new version, which is basically based on the first one but ramped up. And they've added new things like the bonus round from the second game. They kept some of the things from the second one that were good. But they've taken the best, basically, hopefully, they've taken the best and put it into a new game. And it's going to have a cartoon style as far as graphics go. But as far as the original Toe Jam and Earl, you can find it on some compilations. I don't know if you can get it on different consoles, like their online store.
I know I have it on PlayStation 3.
Oh, okay.
And I can't remember how I got it. I think they had it. I don't know if it was from a collection that had it on sale. I have to look how. I can't remember how I even got it, but it was free or something. But I know I got it on PS3, the original one. Could have been a Sega collection thing they had on that.
Yeah, what did you think of it?
I still haven't played enough of it, but I know you recommended it, so at some point I'll get to it. But I remember I didn't know what to think at the first time I saw it back in the day. I remember I wanted it, but I didn't have a Sega Genesis at the time. I think by the time I did get a Sega Genesis, I kind of forgot about the game, which is why I ended up getting it now. So I do want to eventually play it, but I haven't played enough of it to form an opinion. But
it's not one of the most popular franchises, but it was a lot of fun, and you can just play it over and over if you're into it.
Okay.
But yeah, play Toe Jam and Earl. That's all I've got on that one.
Okay. Mine is Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master. Released in Japan as the Super Shinobi 2, is an action game developed and published by Sega for the Mega Drive Genesis console that was released in 1993. It is a direct sequel to the previous The Revenge of Shinobi. The game was originally intended to be released in 1992 and to be very different from the final version of the game in terms of levels and storyline. Shinobi 3 was included on the Sega Genesis collection for the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation Portable. And Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. It was also released for the Wii's Virtual Console service in 2007. For PC and download service Steam, 2010. Oh, it's on Steam too. On the iPhone in 2011, and for the Nintendo 3DS eShop, 2013. Really? I still have my old Genesis cartridge, so I never looked up to see if it was on any other platform. So, didn't know that. I remember between this and Ninja Gaiden, I always liked the Shinobi series a little bit. This one in particular, I tend to like, if I had to compare I like all three Ninja Gaiden games that was on the NES. But Shinobi 3 was like my favorite in terms of the Shinobi series out of the Shinobi games. The ability to double tap the controller to make them run, this animation in it, some of the stuff you can do in the game. As far as the characters' movement and stuff, it's pretty impressive.
I played it on a Sega Genesis collection on the Xbox 360.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that far. I need to play more of it to get what you're saying. I did enjoy it. It seemed like a solid platformer. One thing that kind of stuck out to me. Let's see here. I'm looking at some screenshots right now. For a platformer, the character sprites were a little big.
Yeah.
Not too big, but that's just something that stood out to me. I don't know. I don't really have much of value to say, just because I don't know much about it. But that was my little 2 cents.
But yeah, I really enjoyed the music in this game. It was very. I think at the time I was trying to, because I couldn't find a way to buy music from games. I think you had to special order those in some kind of way, and I don't know if they had a soundtrack for that. So I would have to go to the soundtrack. I think they had a soundtrack option where you can just listen to the soundtrack. I remember I would get an audio tape and record the songs that I listened to.
I did that. I used to do that too. I was about to say that. I get my dad's old little boom box, the built-in microphone, blank tape, and stick it up to the speaker.
Yeah, I would record them on the. After I blew my speakers out because of Contra 3, I got a little portable radio. that I hooked I think I took the VCR. Somehow I got the sound from the VCR some kind of way, or the TV. I took the radio I had the red, white, and red AC cords. I would hook it up, and then let the game play, the soundtrack, and hit the cassette. And I did the same thing with Legend of Dragoon too. I enjoyed some of the songs on there, but I did most of all my Super Nintendo games that way. And Genesis game, I would get have to record the soundtracks that way. If they had an option to let you listen to them, most of them did at the time.
If I had had the intelligence, I would have done it the way you did it. You direct lined it in. I just put it up to the speaker.
Got the clear sound. It was I remember playing the shit out of them tapes too. I was like, oh man. I thought I was just a total geek. I thought I was like, who else does this shit? I didn't care. It was like kind of like, dude, right. I'm such a nerd. I am such a nerd, but I didn't give a shit. I love the songs too much. So I am a huge fan of video game music. I always thought it was just as important as other music. Because I think too, compared to now, I think they really thought of music in games as just important as the rest of the game, graphic wise and gameplay wise. I don't think that's a big thing now with the soundtracks to games. But
speaking of soundtracks, and I should have mentioned this in the news section, but I forgot. Did you hear that they recently dug up and released a copy of SimCity on the NES? Yeah, and that happened, and they've uploaded the soundtrack online. And let's see here. The soundtrack was composed by Soyo Oka. She was a music producer for Nintendo during the 90s, and now she's part of a separate company. But she did the soundtrack for that game, as well as, hold on a second here. She worked with Koji Kondo, who of course famously made the themes for Zelda and Mario and various other Nintendo games, and still the in-house musician. She did the soundtrack for the original Pilot Wings for the SNES, Famicom Grand Prix 2, Super Mario Kart, and Super Mario All-Stars, and Wario's Woods. So not the most extensive catalog of work, but some good ones. Some good ones. And yeah, I'm right there with you on appreciating video game music. The guys behind the soundtracks for Final Fantasy and the Dragon Quest games, and you mentioned earlier the soundtrack for Castlevania 4.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another one that you mention a lot for the Super Nintendo. You really like the soundtrack. Axelay, right?
Axelay, yeah. Fucking love that soundtrack. It's a shooter too, and most shooters, I never really paid attention to something about the soundtrack in that particular shooter stands out a lot for me. And the sound chip again, I don't know what the hell they had in that Nintendo, but it's so crystal clear in that game. Every level fits all the songs, and that's what I love about a lot of the older game soundtracks. Is a lot of the time they made the music fit that particular stage, and it wasn't always not shitting on Mario's soundtrack and anything, but you didn't hear the same thing repeated over and over in each stage.
Right.
But these games, it's like they took pride in making actual game music and not just kind of throwaway thing to you just need some music, background music. It's like they put time into actually making good soundtracks to these things. I appreciate the shit out of them. I love them.
Well, I've noticed with a lot of games, I would consider it creatively lazy, but they do it anyway. Every level is just a reinterpretation of the same song.
Yeah.
Just done in a slightly different way. GoldenEye was guilty of that. Every level was the James Bond theme, just in a different style. It works. It works sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the game just has a lame soundtrack. And there's no excuse for a game that just reuses the same song over and over. So Shinobi 3.
Yep.
So my next pick is Donkey Kong 94. Now, a lot of people aren't sure which game I'm talking about when I say Donkey Kong 94 because it was originally just called Donkey Kong. But they later on added the 94 to distinguish it from the other games. It was released on the Game Boy in 94. And it was... Let's see, the first note I have here on the list is Make Donkey Kong Great Again, which is basically what they did. They took the original Donkey Kong. Did you ever play this?
Dude, played the shit out of that game.
Okay,
yes.
I forgot if you did or not.
So
you know everything. So for everybody listening then, they took the original formula from the classic arcade Donkey Kong game, and you actually start the game out with the original 4 stages, and then they added a huge world of, I believe, 8 different worlds after that part, where you just constantly were chasing after Donkey Kong to get, I think it was Pauline was the girl in the Donkey Kong games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you'd have to chase after Donkey Kong to try and get Pauline back, and every level had at least 8 different stages with a mini-boss, which was always Donkey Kong Jr., and you would go through each stage having to find the key and get it to the door so you could move on. And every stage was a different puzzle, and they would just ramp up the difficulty as you kept going. You'd have various different types of enemies, often which you'd have to use to your advantage to get through the level. And the levels were usually, whereas in the original Donkey Kong levels, they were just one screen big, a lot of these levels consisted of multiple screens. They had water. Mario had different tricks. He could do a handstand and do a double jump or a backflip. There were poles that you could swing off of. The soundtrack was cool. It's got a nice homey kind of vibe, I guess. It's what's the word? I guess I would say it was cute sounding. Everything about the game was had kind of like this cute appeal. But it was also a lot of fun. It didn't try to go over the limitations of the time. It knew what to do to make it work. Some of the levels could be a bit of a drag. Sometimes the puzzles could be frustrating. But it's just a fun game. It's not something that I could just replay over and over back to back. I do have to put it down here and there and then come back to it later. Nostalgia. There was so much nostalgia in the game. And I know we're talking a game that's, about 26 years old now?
Mm-hmm.
But there's something timeless about the game because it works with a very basic idea and just builds upon it as much as it can. And then, of course, there was a sequel for the Game Boy Advance, but I never played it. Mario and Donkey Kong, or what was it called?
Yeah, I think that's right. It had the. Now, is this the ones where there's they're like wind up toys? Is that supposed to be like the sequel to? Okay, I think I only played one of those. But I'm talking about that.
I always the death. There are different types of deaths in each
Donkey
level.
Kong versus Mario versus Donkey Kong.
That was it. That was it. I like the humor in a lot of the animation. So Mario could drown. He could fall from too great of a height, which would cause him to land on his head, and there'd be a little halo above him. My favorite was when he got burnt to death, where he just he'd catch into a giant fireball and fly across the screen, and he'd just land there as this big heaping pile of ash.
Damn.
A lot of fun. So
I remember when I first played it, that after the 4th stage, I don't even know how I ended up getting it. Because my little sister, I don't think she had it. Or maybe I think I borrowed it from her. But I think I just kept the game and never gave it back to her. Because after the fourth stage, it was like a M. Night Shyamalan twist. I was not expecting the game to turn to that. I thought it was just going to be a whole bunch of levels like the other 4 levels. They're just going to make some new ones. But it like did this whole twist where it was like this puzzle-based thing. I'm like, damn. I played the hell out of that thing. And I think at the time, I had the Game Boy Color for the Super Nintendo adapter. I think that's when I played it first. Yeah, actually, I think that's when I did play it. I can't remember how I got the game, but I remember either my sister had the game, or I ended up buying it because I like Donkey Kong and I wanted a handheld Donkey Kong. And I think at the time you couldn't find a other than I think Animal Crossing. I think Animal Crossing had the actual Donkey Kong game. In Animal Crossing, you can get these Nintendo systems that played the old NES games. If you could find them.
Cool.
I can't remember how you obtained them back then. And that's the only way I remember at the time I could play Donkey Kong. When I had it on Game Boy, I was like, oh, okay, I had no idea they were going to, what it was. I really enjoyed that game a lot. My next game is Shakan the Forever Man. It's a Sega Mega Drive, Genesis, and Game Gear video game published by Sega of America during December 1992. The game featured an uncommonly dark premise for the time of its release, which saw the home console market flooded with licensed platformers based on family-friendly media. It is based upon a comic book by Robert A. Cross, and was produced by Ed. What the fuck is that name?
Annunziata.
Yeah. Who met Shakan's creator at a convention and was impressed. Yeah, Shakan was, I don't know how even, I probably saw a review on it. And at that time I was looking for Sega Genesis games. I had just gotten a Sega Genesis. And I was trying to get some games for it. And I remember saw some pretty good reviews on this one, so I said, I'll get it. And it's crazy about this. I love this game. It's pretty crazy. It's hard. You go through these different, I'm trying to think how you start off. You got several different weapons. I think you start off with 2 swords, though. And I like the look of the game. I like the feel of it. I like there's something unique. You know, like Sega Genesis wasn't that powerful. But you know, some games, because they don't have that much power, they have a kind of unique look to them. Shakan had that. Something about it was eerie and creepy about it. Something about it really gravitated towards. But you start off on this platform. You got these several portals you go through, and you defeat a portal and go to another one until you get to, and I don't think there was a save system to it, but it's a pretty unique game. It's at that time it's something different that it's hard to describe the game. It's one of those games you really have to play because you go into a portal, fight several enemies in the stage, come out, and how did you upgrade your character? I have to play it again. Anyway, it's one of those games that's really hard to describe. You have to see like video of it and play it. I don't think a lot of people even know this game exists. Just find a lot of YouTube videos on it, tutorials and stuff like that. Because it's not at all linear. You kind of choose your way to go, but I think there is a path you can go to make it a little easier for yourself. But it's a wild game. It's one of my favorites.
Well, I see here something that you didn't see all the time is, especially in that era, you start in a hub world.
Yeah, hub world is what I'm saying. Yeah, hub world.
Right, and you can choose a different world based on an element. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the screenshots. Yeah, graphically, it's really impressive.
Yeah, it had a unique look to it. Something about it I really liked. It didn't look as good as a Super Nintendo game, but something about it I still liked. something unique about the way it looks. So I still thought it was a good looking game though. I like the way the enemy sound. I like how he sound when he dies. He had this how do demons sound? I never met one, but whatever they used for the voice in this game was pretty cool. How they altered voices.
So they had voice acting?
No, it's I think you only heard his voice when he died, but the way he sounded was cool. You know how it kind of similar how Alucard sounds with that.
In Symphony of the Night.
Yeah,
man. Some of the voice I forgot to mention the voice acting in Symphony of the Night, especially the opening that's now infamous.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so they had a little bit of voice acting in Chikan, though. You're saying?
Yeah, I can't think there was much talking, but he made sounds like grunts and some shit. But it kind of reminded me, if you hear how Alucard sounds when he swings his sword, he kind of had that same kind of sound in his voice when he died or something.
Gotcha.
But I like the sound effects too when you kill an enemy, and I played the crap out of that game. I never beat it because of the portals and you couldn't save. And I remember getting stuck. I think I remember trading the game in and went through. Kind of got rid of my Genesis at some point when I got the newer systems. A lot of newer systems had these Sega collections. Even the Dreamcast had some Sega collections, but that game was never included in any of them. I ended up finding the game again on Amazon, and I plan on at some point actually playing it again and beating it. It's one of my top favorites. Very obscure, unique game. I don't know how many people know about it or ever played it. I don't know if many people are familiar with the comic book, but it's one of my favorite games. So that's all I have to say about it. But,
sorry, I'm getting texts from my mom. I think she just discovered emojis. All right. So my next one is unorthodox, but fuck it. Game Boy camera. Now, some people will say that's not a game, that's an app, or that's a peripheral. Yeah, but it's a game. Yeah, but I'm putting it on
a game system.
It's in a game system. There were games built into the Game Boy camera. I could go for quite a while on the details on this one, but okay, so it was released in 1998. It was the progenitor of the selfie. It was a moderately functional camera for its time. It took things in black and white. It took pictures in black and white in pixelated format. But the camera was just one small part of this whole thing. It set the world record for the smallest digital camera at the time of its release. But the features that came with the camera were just ridiculous. This was the team at Nintendo just having fun in a lot of bits. I still remember this segment where you could watch, I believe it's Miyamoto dancing on screen. There were space shooter games, Space Fever, which was a sequel to a very old shooter that Nintendo used to make back in the arcade days. And the final boss would be a monster in the shape of your head, or whatever you wanted to take the picture of to be the final boss. And then you could use your picture also in different games, like there was one I think called Run, 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 where you were competing against a bird and a mole in like a 500-yard race. Just the little details that they added into the game were hilarious. And you could also print the pictures off. I think you had to buy it separately, a printer that would print off stickers. I mean, to get into the details, you had a very crude animation program that came with it. There was a music composer where you could make your own loops, and you could even superimpose your head onto the stick figure, and he would DJ like two different turntables, and you could scratch, and you could add little sound effects. The camera, you could rotate 180 degrees to either take in front of you or take a picture of yourself, which we see now in every smartphone. I mean, to go any further would just be to get into little tiny details. Some of the other funny things I remember is one of the main menu screens where you can choose what feature you want to use. It's shaped like a battle system in an RPG. And if you chose to run, there was a run option. You would randomly get like these terrifying pictures that they put on there, and it just says, "Who are you running from?" With this really creepy doomish kind of music. I don't know. Did you ever fuck with a Game Boy camera?
No, I was not a peripheral person. Now, was this on? There was a attachment on the. Oh, this was the original Game Boy.
Yeah,
put the camera on.
Yeah, but you could put it in any of the other Game Boys.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
the Super Game Boy also.
Super Game. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah.
Although it kind of defeats some of the purpose since you're setting your camera into a console.
Yeah. No, I'd never gotten to. My thing too was if I wanted a camera on something, I just go buy a real camera.
Right.
My little sister was into Game Boy Deep. I didn't touch any handheld until Game Boy Advance. If I did play anything, I did fuck with Kirby. I think when she got Kirby on her Game Boy, that's when it's the only time I would play a Game Boy because of Kirby. She was a big Pokemon freak at the time, so I could not get into. I'm a console person, and like I said, Kirby was the only thing I got into heavy.
Hold on, you cut out on me. You for like the last 30 seconds, you went dead on me.
Oh shit! What did you hear last?
Kirby.
Oh, okay. I was saying I didn't really mess with Game Boys until Kirby, which I only borrowed my sister's Game Boy. I would play Kirby on that.
Yeah.
But I never owned a Game Boy until Advance, or handheld period until Advance, Game Boy Advance. And if I was going to play a Game Boy game, I was going to use that adapter. The Super Game Boy, and play handhelds that way. But other than that, having to aim it at the light, this is for backlights. Well, say Game Gear had it, but
yeah, that's one of the things I hated about the original Game Boy in the Pocket, no backlight. And yeah, the Game Gear did have backlight, but it had a shorter battery life, and it needed 6 batteries instead of the Game Boy's 4.
And unless you had a job, you weren't going to fork over that much money for battery. Your parents weren't. And what is it for flashlights? You're not going to waste money on this.
Well, for the original Game Boy, I had that add-on you could attach over the screen that had a light.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
that just like went around the screen, and then later on, I had one of those little like coily lights that would just stick up over the screen.
I ended up getting one of those for my Game Boy Advance.
Wait, when did Game Boy start finally backlighting their screens?
When they did the flip open, the SP, was it?
Man, that took them forever.
Because it's Nintendo. It's like...
Yeah.
They've always been this weird. It's like... Other than Super Nintendo, it's like when they came with the 64, it was like they're missing something. They did want to do CDs. Then they finally did CDs, but they did it in the 1 gigabyte mini disc. Developers didn't really like that. And had somewhat of an online thing, but And then the Wii didn't have good resolution. You had to play it on the standard TV. The Wii U was whatever the fuck. And then I think they may have gotten it right with the Switch. And even with the shit.
Could you imagine
3DS,
if the Switch's portable screen didn't have a backlight?
I can't imagine.
That's even too ridiculous for Nintendo to have pulled.
Right. The time they actually did try to be current is with the 3DS, but 3D was kind of a fad, and it didn't really take.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, you're kind of finally ahead of the curve. We'll try to be somewhat current, and it was one of those things that people didn't really give a shit about. Nobody used it. Barely anyone used the 3D on the 3DS. That's why they made it 2D, 2DS. Not a lot of people. Eye strain, eyes were hurt. I liked it for some games, but I rarely turned it on myself. I like the option of it being there, but I rarely use it. And I ended up getting me a 2DS. Dad had a 3DS, but Nintendo is something else.
Yeah, spotty track record. So what do you got?
Persona 3 is my next game.
Shit.
Persona 3 is a role-playing game developed by Atlas, chronologically the fourth installment of the Persona series, a sub-series of the Megami Tensei franchise. Persona 3 was originally published in 2006 on the PlayStation 2 by Atlas in Japan. The North American release of the game was delayed until 2007 due to issues with the publication of the official art book. Persona 3 FES, a director's cut version, contained a new playable epilogue, among other changes, was released in Japan in 2007 and worldwide the following year. In Persona 3, the player takes the role of a male high school student who joins the specialized extracurricular execution squad, SEAS, a group of students investigating the dark hour, a time period between one day and the next that few people are aware of. During the dark hour, the player enters Tartarus, a large tower containing shadows, creatures that feed on the minds of humans. To fight the shadows, each member of SEAS is able to summon a persona, a manifestation of a person's inner self. The game's most iconic feature is the method by which the member of SEAS releases their personas by firing a gun-like object called Evoker at their heads. In addition to the standard elements of role-playing games, Persona 3 included elements of simulation games, as the game's protagonist progresses day by day through school year, finding friends and forming relationships that improve the strength of the personas in battle. Reception of the Persona 3 was mainly positive. Critics enjoyed the game's social elements, while some found the combat and environments repetitive. Persona 3 FES's epilogue was said to give narrative closure to the original game, although it was criticized for not featuring the simulation aspect of Persona 3. A PlayStation Portable version of Persona 3 titled Persona 3 Portable was released in Japan in November 2009, in North America, July 2010, and in Europe, April 2011. The remake adds the ability to play as a female protagonist, new story elements and music, and a new interface design for the PSP. Two fighting games that continue the storyline of selected members of SEAS, Persona 4 Arena and Persona 4 Arena Ultramax, were released in the early 2010s. Persona 3 has also been related forms of media releases, including a rhythmic game spin-off, multiple soundtrack albums, musical concerts, and radio dramas, a manga adaptation, an anime series, and an episodic animated film series. What can I say about this game? It's the Persona series is always weird, especially the way each game had a different way of summoning your personas. This one was really unique because the way the intro of the game started, I'm like, oh my God, it's a suicide game. Let the people shoot themselves in the fucking head. I didn't know that then the story lets you know that what's going on with all that. And Evoker is just a tool they use to pull up the personas, but the way they do it is so crazy. You just shoot yourself in the skull and the persona comes out. I thought it had a real unique battle system. It does feel dungeon crawly, but there's other aspects of the game that is real cool. Is like I said, the way they mentioned the people you meet throughout the game strengthens your main character and all that stuff. Or you meeting people somehow helps you out later in the game when you form relationships with people. It's one of those games you have to play. It's kind of hard to describe if you haven't played it because it does this thing where you do something for a day, then it goes to the next day. It's not a typical RPG design, I guess you could say. But
yeah, it sounds like a more closed world, event-based game.
Yeah, but main character was a cool character.
Yeah, they got a very.
That's what it was called because you get to name them yourself. So it didn't have a name. It wasn't like a character. You were they'll name a main character whenever they mention a character in the game because you name the character yourself. You are that character. That's your form, I guess you'd call it. So it's not like Cloud or anybody. So, and I think he had more than one persona you can summon for different battle scenarios and stuff. But pretty good. I think this game also depressed me towards the end. So it's like, God damn, I would like to. This game, Final Fantasy VII and Alundra. Probably one of the most depressing fucking RPGs ever made. For me, at least.
But it's a depression that you can get behind.
Yeah, I guess. It left me, but I think that's a good thing when a game can make you care about characters in a game. I think that's really good. I'm always for that. But yeah, damn, And it wasn't. I don't want to say what the ending is, but it was like, yeah, that's fucked up. That's all I can say. And it had a long lasting. It really had an impression on you when you think about a game weeks after you beat it. That's what this game did for me. So it's one of my favorite RPGs. One of my favorite games, too. I love the series itself, the Persona series. One of my favorites. It's usually always dark. It's very mature. And, well, I mean, it's high school kids. I don't know how mature that can be, but they're not annoying, really. You got some annoying. You're gonna always have annoying characters in a lot of anime games, but
right. It just seems unescapable.
Yeah, but really, really love the hell out of this game. Yeah, so that's
I'm gonna
pretty
have
much all I have to say about the game.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, and each game too. I don't think you have to play like the previous games because each game has a different. Like there's the tower. I can't think of the fucking guy's name, but the big nose. But I think he's in every game. He's the one that gives you. I can't remember this correctly. I know you talk to him to do something in the game, and I think he's in each game. Because Persona 4, you have to. I think you use cards to summon the personas. I think I only have one actual. I've got that on the PlayStation. Megami Tensei game. I think Persona is like the sub series of the game, so it kind of sometimes be confusing, which is what. But yeah, pretty good series though. Very unique. I really love the character designs for the personas. I almost have before Warframe came out. If I had to compare the uniqueness to, I say Warframe, the way those characters look, and the way Persona looks, personas. very unique designs.
Mm-hmm.
It's always amazes me how people can come up with some of the designs for these personas, because that's a lot of game to cover that they have, and they got a lot of games, and then to come with unique looks to these personas is pretty impressive. But anyway, yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
All right, so my next one is Kirby Superstar.
Yes!
For the Super Nintendo in 1996. And I've decided to start calling it Super Smash Bros. Zero because it really did start the system that they used later on. You had the defensive blocking on the L and R buttons. You could grapple enemies.
Yes.
The level layouts, the physics of the combat were very telling, and you would see that later on in the Super Smash Bros. Games. You could see a lot of the elements that would eventually show up, and I don't want to say perfected, but they definitely worked with them later on. But Kirby Superstar is just, to me, one of the most kick-ass Kirby games.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby, of course, as we've said before, is a very soft, innocent-looking little fluff.
Wanna fuck you up?
Would fuck you up royally. One of the things I loved about this game were the animations of the characters. Some of the enemies, when you hit them, they would like get this look on their face like you just ripped their heart out.
Right.
You could knock their head back across the stage. They had damage animations for all the characters. And I still remember the punching sound effects for the fighter ability, where it sounded just like super intense.
Mm-hmm.
You could do rapid punches. And you could make partners. You could turn your ability into like a partner character, and most of the time they were pretty worthless, but it was still a lot of fun to play. They really got the Kirby platformer down with this one. They really figured out what works and what doesn't. And it was a series of different mini-games. You had Spring Breeze, which was basically the original Kirby on the Game Boy, but remastered or remade into a Super Nintendo title. You had the Great Cave Offensive, where it was more of an exploratory game where you were trying to collect as many treasures as you could. You had Meta Knight's Revenge, which took a dark turn, and you were infiltrating his ship and trying to take him down. That one was always a favorite to me just because of the atmosphere. And speaking of atmosphere, the music was incredible. Some parts could be a little repetitive. They would reuse a lot of the mini-bosses over and over. The Gourmet Race, of course, the theme song from that game, or the main song, has pretty much become the most popular Kirby song of all time. And the one that he's most remembered by. The one that, of course, goes da 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 da. They had a couple of little mini games, like they had the Samurai Showdown. I can't remember what that was called, but it was basically quick draw. You had the Megaton. Yeah, it's hard as fuck too. I mean, you really have to have lightning reaction times on some of the later ones. And then Megaton Punch, where you're competing to see who could cause the most damage. And if you're good enough, you could cause a rip in the planet or the star.
Yeah, I think when I first saw that, I laughed so hard. I don't know why. They cracked me up when I first did that. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. That cracks me up every time.
That's the calling card, you know. It's a cute exterior with excessive violence underneath. Let's see. I don't know, man. What are your thoughts?
I remember my first Kirby game was the NES, and I played the Game Boy one. When it came to NES, and I'm trying to think, was that the first NES game, a Super Nintendo game for Kirby, or was it one before that?
Yeah, that was the first Kirby game.
Okay, yeah. So when I jumped
Kirby 3.
right on that, when they had a game for Super Nintendo that had Kirby, I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting this. I didn't expect it to have like a main thing, and then the mini games. And dude, I played the hell out of that game. I think I beat that and played it again too. It's one of those games I can play over and over again, especially the mini games.
Yeah, I recently just picked it up and started playing it again.
My daughter, she started getting into the game. She Kirby fan, and that's the thing. That's one of the first games I think I had her play was that game, as far as Kirby's concerned, and she loves it. I highly recommend that game too. I also recommend, if you're a Kirby fan, Return to Dreamland if you can find that.
Yeah.
You think like Kirby's like even more ruthless in this game. The fact that he's got this power up. I can't think what it's called. He gets certain weapons. He's got like a chef's axe. I mean a chef's what you call that? Heck, not a hatchet. What the fuck did the chefs use?
Tomahawk. Oh. Chefs use.
Fuck that is.
What does it do?
It just when he pulls that out, it cuts up the whole screen of enemies. It takes up the whole screen. So does his sword. And you have like a time limit in which you can use it. So you get like this big power-up weapon. And you see little Kirby swing the shit out of it, and it just fucks everybody up on screen. It's hilarious. And Return to Robotron. Return to Planet Robobot.
Oh, yeah, Planet Robobot.
For the 3DS. Highly recommend that one, too, if you're a Kirby, into Kirby game.
Yeah, there's a lot of Kirby I gotta catch up on.
I didn't think I would like that game because of I thought it would spend too much time in a robot suit, but it's just part of the game. It's standard platform Kirby stuff. And I got that game. My daughter wanted it, so I ended up playing it too. I was like, oh shit, this motherfucker's good. So if you can find Return to Dreamland, I'll say those games are just as good, if not better, than. And that's hard for me to say that. Kirby Superstar, but I highly recommend all three of those games if you look for Kirby games to play. Definitely do those.
So, what do you got next? Or this is the last one, isn't it?
Yes. I have Pocky and Rocky. Pocky and Rocky is a 1992 multi-directional side-scrolling shooter video game developed by Natsume. Is it Natsume or Natsume? For the Super Nintendo. It is the sequel to the 86 arcade game Kiki Kaikai, developed by Taito. Pocky and Rocky follows the adventure of a young Shinto shrine maiden named Pocky and her new companion, Rocky, the Tanuki, as they attempt to save a group of creatures known as the Nopino. God damn it. Nopino. I have to find Nopino. That's in goblins.
Looks like Nopino.
Nopino goblins. Gameplay takes place.
The penis goblins.
Takes place from a top-down perspective and features both single-player and cooperative mode. The game was generally well received by critics and follow-up sequel. That was a hard game to find. Was the part 2 of that? I think it had 2 or 3 more characters added to the game, but it looks like a Zelda top-down game, but it's a shooter.
Yeah, this game looks fun as fuck,
dude.
Just from what I'm seeing here.
I even got my mother and dad to play this game. That's how fun it is. Even they enjoyed it.
How hard is it to find a copy today? A physical copy?
God.
Any idea? It looks to me like I just get the impression, oh, this game has got to be rare as shit. Like, you'll find it occasionally in a used game store for like $200. I could be completely off on that.
Yeah, it's one of the games that was it 92? I think I read EGM had a review on it, and
I got a copy right here on Etsy for $19.
I think I got quite a few, and it had that Zelda RPG look, which hooked me, and then the fact it was a shooter, I was like, oh. And I always like the cutesy sprites too, the chibi characters.
Yeah.
Look, so I'm like, all right. And when I played it, but I didn't know that you don't just the shooting, their weapons or what you shoot upgrades to bigger versions of what you have. So she throw cards, and if you get an upgrade, the cards get bigger. I think it's like 2 or 3 levels up, and they just you fuck everybody up with those cards. And the raccoon shoots. I mean, the Tanuki shoots. Same thing, I guess. Shoots leaves. But there's also another power up where you get you throw fireballs. They have like these other little power ups to gain your health. The enemies are it's just so fun. It's one of those quick pick up and play shooting games. You can cute little story and everything. I used to play that. Traditionally, I would play it like every Sunday for some reason. I would play other games during the week, but Sunday I would intentionally just play Pocky and Rocky. I had to play that. Of all the other games, I made room to play that game at least once a week.
You went to Pocky and Rocky Church.
Yes. Praise Pocky and Rocky. But if you can find it, I would highly recommend that one too. It's a very fun show.
I mean, from looking at a couple of other copies online, it's very affordable. It's under $20.
Oh, okay. Cool.
They have a complete box version for like $450 too, if you're hardcore. If that's still available by the time you're hearing this.
I think my Nintendo Power, I think at the time I bought that I ended up having a poster for the game. Or like a little mini poster. I think I still have it somewhere.
I love the 90s anime style.
Yeah.
It has a specific look.
It's really good too. This is also one of the soundtracks. My favorite is The Graveyard. So I can't think of the name of it right now. But it's one of my favorite songs on that game. I just like the whole. I can't find a flaw in that game in terms of anything. It gets a little harder. Difficulty is pretty decent. They said even my daughter could play. Me and my mother played. She likes it. She doesn't really care for anything past Miss Pac-Man. Even got my dad to play. He's the same way. Doesn't anything Centipede or Pac-Man or stuff it for him too. But they both of them actually enjoyed the game when they played it. So it's like y'all liked it. Damn, it's pretty good.
So you heard it here. Pocky and Rocky, family approved. Good, wholesome 90s entertainment for the whole family.
And it's not a it's dark in tone in some capacity, but not over the top dark. But it's it makes you want to go save them damn goblins. I can tell you that.
Well, that's good. You need motivation. Yeah. It's good. It's good.
Especially when you get to the end, it's like, oh, I'm so glad I helped those people out. Kind of fucked up how they had them caged in the damn, piled up on each other. Like, no, I got to save these people. I got to free my people, or those people.
It's like the story of Moses, but with goblins.
Yeah, they too are. Pocky and Rocky will fuck you up too. They're like Kirby. They very. They give no shits about fucking you up.
I just assume any character that looks vaguely Japanese anime is lethal. And I'm looking at some of the shots here, man. It looks fucking beautiful.
Yeah, and they also have one of the other few things back then that shooters didn't have was the defensive element to it. So if an enemy's shooting at you, she can sweep a broom, or you can dodge with a broom the shots. And, one of the few shooters I know that you can actually defend yourself in and not just dodge. They also had a dodge button where you can shoot yourself across the screen to dodge shots, or you can defend yourself by she has a broom. He uses his tail. Rocky does, and if you hold a button down, he turns into a statue for even more defense, and then he comes out of it. Blah blah blah. But
So
yeah, it's one of the first. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, no. So Rocky is the raccoon-looking creature, right?
Right.
I bet that was inspired by the Beatles song "Rocky Raccoon." Just a thought I had. Because the Beatles are so big in Japan. I mean, like they are everywhere, but yeah.
Well, it's a sequel to. I don't know what the character's name were, unless it was Kiki Kai was the name of the particular characters, but it was changed.
Sounds like
American
what I do when I take a dump.
Sequel. But yeah, if anybody can find that game, it's a pretty cool shooter with again, one of the only shooters I know that had a defense. Not a broom, it's some item she uses, but it looks like, to me, I thought it was some kind of broom she uses to dodge enemy shots, and you can also shoot yourself or use your body or propel yourself across the screen to avoid shots too. And I don't know, again, shooters at the time when I was playing them, you had any kind of way of defending yourself. You just had to dodge or jump or move and not get hit.
Right.
Very unique bosses. The boss fights are really fun. Yeah, if you can ever get a chance to put your hands on this game, I would say get a chance to play it.
I'm thinking about buying a copy tonight.
Oh, get on it. Tell me what you think if you do it. It's really fun. I really like it. But yeah, that's one of my, definitely one of my top. It's like every time I think of a list of games, I gotta put Pocket Rocky somewhere on there. If it was top 5, I had to do Pocket Rocky over a lot of games. It's just fun. It's nothing it's special to me. But if you look at it, it's like, oh, it's so cute. Nah, it's a really fun. It's just fun. What game should be just something fun to play, but definitely unique in a lot of ways, and especially at the time that it came out.
That's what I hear about every now and then, still. So yeah, there's got to be a lot of. It's got to be a pretty popular one. It was. How long was the game?
If you beat it, now shooters, what can I say? You're good.
Yeah.
Good 30, 35 minutes, maybe. I don't think I ever really timed. Like you trust me, you'd be satisfied with the amount of stages they have, and the bosses, the mini. Was I saying mini bosses? I'll say the enemy fights are very fun. I think it's the average length that you would find in a shooter if you were to play it street. Unless you're a speed runner, I'm sure they can tackle it within minutes. But I thought it had a satisfying. There's enough stages. I think by the time especially when you get to the harder stages, I've always felt satisfied with the ending, the way it plays, the amount of stages that it had, and the stages are pretty lengthy. I can't tell you anything about it that not too much negative I can say about it. I think it's good length. I think it's good control. I like the power ups in it. I mean, what's mostly power ups are your the stuff that you throw, but they have like 3 levels. The original level, then the 2 gets a little bigger, and then I think they kind of throw a little fast. They had a little secret parts in the game where you hit something and this dragon dog, I don't know what the hell it is, you drop on top of that and it hops on the enemies. Natsun usually. I'm trying to think what other game. I think they did the Harvest Moon games, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that's why I think it was one of the games that kind of fell under the radar. People probably not a lot of people know about. But I used to always recommend it to people when I back in the day. I'm not maybe they actually got it, but if you can get your hands on it, man, definitely play it.
Okay, so it was made by Natsume, or is it Natsume?
Yeah, that's like I think it's not. I would have to get the pronunciation of that too.
It's the name of two different video game publishers, Natsume Atari and Natsume Incorporated. Well, anything else on that one?
No.
Okay, so my last one is Pokemon Go. No, I'm kidding. It's Warcraft.
I was going to say, really? That was a twist.
Yeah, no. It's Warcraft 2.
Oh, okay.
Which is the game that got me into real-time strategy games. I think a friend of mine had it, a couple of friends of mine had it, and I'd seen him play it, and so I liked it enough just from watching that I went and got a copy. I believe that was the first game I actually bought for the PC back in the 90s. Which, yes, it was a PC game. It was released originally for DOS in 95, and then Mac in 96. Of course, most people now are more familiar with World of Warcraft, which it built heavily upon. But back in the day, Warcraft 2 was the shit. And then, of course, it was followed by StarCraft, which was even bigger. But Warcraft 2 was a top-down real-time strategy game where you played as either the humans or the orcs, and you could play campaign modes for both, and there would be a storyline for both sides that you would follow depending on who you were fighting for. And there was a plot, there was a long story that went behind it. I don't recall it all now, but basically the orcs found a portal into the human world, into Azeroth, which is the name of the land, and they're trying to take over. And then the orc campaign, as the humans you're trying to fight them off, as the orcs you're trying to invade. And you had different units with different abilities. You had to mine and cut down trees for resources to build different facilities to produce different units. And basically every level had a different mission, but you could also play multiplayer. And I used to play on BattleNet, and you could play up to, I forget how many sides you could have in a single game. I think you could do 6 or 8 teams, and it was just a free-for-all. You were trying to be the last to survive. The music wasn't bad. The graphics were nice. They're very colorful. What I really liked were some of the maps that they made for the online version. You could have maps that were basically just full of nothing but resources. You had a couple maps that were recreations of actual world maps. Some that were just set up that would make you just wonder, what the fuck were they thinking? They just wanted to, have fun and run with it. Some of my favorite sound bites actually come from this game. Every unit had something different to say when you selected them, and if you kept on bugging them, they'd start to get pissed at you, and they'd start to, well, they probably want to piss on you. They'd start making threats to you and grumbling and griping. It was just a lot of fun. You could just, one of the great things about the game is that you could just keep playing because of the way it was designed. It never really got old because every new game or mission was the same thing, and you always had to work your way up from usually nothing, although in some missions you were given pre-existing units, and in some missions you didn't have any resources to build with. It was a survival mission where you just had to, say, escort a certain player past danger. And the game's definitely dated somewhat, but it's still a playable game. It's still a fun game that you can enjoy. I mean, StarCraft, the StarCraft esports community is still big right now. Bigger than
Yeah,
Warcraft 2 got to be, but still, it's a considerable game.
I watched a few of those StarCraft on Twitch not too long ago. I always wanted to play the StarCraft. I didn't know what exactly you were supposed to do in it, but I always thought it was cool looking. I always thought that didn't know nothing about it, but I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line was generally either survive or just obliterate your enemy. And a lot of times they would be building up at the same time that you were, so you couldn't just get lazy. Otherwise, whoever was ready would move in first.
Mm-hmm.
And they had, I believe they called it Fog of War. You didn't know what was on the other side of the map until you actually explored. It was just blackness. And then if you knew the area but you didn't have troops there, you couldn't see what was going on. That's why you had to send out like recon units to see ahead of you, so if somebody was moving in, you were ready. And then, of course, Warcraft 2, it's sort of like with Street Fighter 2, you only hear about the second one, and people ask, well, what about the first one? What was the first one? I never played the first Warcraft, but I've looked at it, I've seen footage of it, and yeah, I'd definitely take Warcraft 2 any day. It was just a lot more basic. You know, they hadn't, they hadn't smoothed the edges off of it.
Is it? Not, I don't know when the term MOBA became a thing. Is that what that is?
I was just talking to somebody about this the other day because I was asking them. They told me it's a MOBA, and I asked them, "What's a MOBA?" Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. Yeah, you could say that it was a MOBA when you were playing the online mode, obviously. Also, it's also known as Action Real-Time Strategy. So yeah, it's just a new name they gave to something that's already been around.
Now, is there a difference between RTS and MOBAs, or is that kind of just people have a different phrasing or word for? Because I guess I would consider, say, Smite, for example, to be.
Okay, well, actually, I think what I said a minute ago was a little off. A MOBA is a sub-genre in the action real-time strategy genre. It uses real-time strategy mechanics, but a player controls a single character in a team who compete versus another team of players. So it seems the only difference is that you're just in control of a single player. So I suppose Warcraft 2 isn't, by technical definition, a MOBA, but it was, in most of its elements, essentially that.
Okay. I think Smite is that way too. One of the only ones I played in terms of having a single character I control, where I have to send in my minions to take down a tower with other players. But it's more of a towards your back perspective, or it's not a top down. I think Smite is the only game I played that was kind of like that in terms of somewhat a MOBA or real-time strategy or anything. I don't know. What is Smite considered? Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, that was pretty much what I had on that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Smite is considered, or is a free-to-play third-person multiplayer. So it's a MOBA too. Okay. Yeah, Smite is.
The biggest one, of course, is League of Legends.
Yeah, Dota is. I know there's a lot of. Everybody say Dota is harder to play, but is this Dota and League of Legends kind of community where it's like, from what I understand, I don't know if they're friendly with each other or not. It's kind of like the Star Wars versus Star Trek folks.
Which two franchises?
League of Legends and Dota. DOTA.
I would imagine, but I'm not really experienced with either of those two franchises. I know how they work, but as far as like the rivalry, probably.
I only know because seeing it on when I first started watching Twitch, Dota and League of Legends were like the top viewed games, and I did not understand what was going on. I didn't know how the thing worked until I started watching some of the competitors' streams and stuff, and the teams and stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand a little bit. And there was always this. There's people say if they were to ask someone who they wanted to play, if they were into one of these games, there was always that play Dota versus play League of Legends. People were either League of Legends or Dota. Mm-hmm. It really wasn't seemed like a common ground. It was so play this one or this one. This one is better than this one. This one's harder than this one, or one or the other.
Right, Coke or Pepsi. I'm sure they're both decent games. League gets a lot of flack because it's so popular, but it's anything that's popular enough. Tallest blade of grass gets cut first.
Like Fortnite.
Yeah, Fortnite. Still haven't touched that one.
Yeah, I think I lost unless I had a PC that could run it, because I don't know if my PC would run any good or not. But when I did play it on console, but just of the building, I can't. I'm trying to switch it with a console controller. It sucks, but it is fun for what it is. But it's one of those games too. I guess 8-year-olds play.
Right.
I don't know, and it's kind of like, and that shouldn't matter, but I don't care to play it because of that. I don't know, it's kind of weird reason not to want to play it, but like it's fun. But if I'm going to play somebody, I guess I don't want to play with an 8-year-old. I want to play with an adult, and I don't know what person my age would be into playing that game necessarily. Although it's fun. When I have times I've played it, but you can play solos. I guess you don't really have to communicate with anybody. If you want to play on teams, I mean, if it's not my little nephews or anything, I don't really care to play it. But it's fun when I have played it. But Ninja, one of the biggest street stream, did a live stream of the game, I guess at Times Square. And before he played the game, though, he was trying to do the dances for the crowd on New Year's Eve. It was so cringy. Nobody danced. I think it was like a couple of kids did that was familiar with all of that stuff. And if you're not familiar with Ninja, people are like, what is this guy doing?
I've heard of Ninja. I've heard he's been popping up in some stories recently, but I didn't look into it.
Yeah. He did the New Year's Eve. Well, he really got into an issue when his stream, when he was advertising his time at going to Times Square on other people's channels. And people were like, especially Dr. Disrespect was not cool with that. It's not like YouTube where they'll shout out another YouTuber and say, hey, go watch this video. Twitch is totally different, where they're competing for views anyway. And if you're the most, Ninja tends to get 60 to 100 and something people at a time watching his stream. He's like the top of the top. So him advertising other people's stream kind of, I guess, conflict of interest. It kind of makes, nobody likes that, Right. And his idea, if he thought, his whole thing was if it'll bring more attention to Twitch as a whole if he does this. But it's like, you're advertising yourself. The other people who probably wanted to do something for New Year's Eve, it's overshadowed by you advertising on our channel. Like, I don't know, it's rubbed people the wrong way. I think he ended up taking the tweet down. He had tweeted that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like some foul play.
Yeah.
I can see how that would tick off other streamers.
Yeah, and the fact that Twitch would even do that or allow that to happen is also weird. A lot of times, popular streamers will, if they see like lesser view, they on their own will raid another channel just to help them out, just to be nice. This wasn't that. This was you're advertising on another person's platform when you're your biggest streamer on Twitch. Why would to do that on another person's channel? And it's not like YouTube. Like I said, it's a whole different system, and everything is live except for when they do the VODs. You can watch either VODs or they'll rerun their own shows, but most of the channels are live. You're already trying to compete for viewership, depending on what game you're playing and everything. Last thing you need is a bigger streamer to advertise their shit on your channel.
Right.
So I can understand people not liking that at all. I think that's the thing at Times Square. So
speaking of streamers, have you heard of Destiny? Not the game. He was back in the day, like in the earlier 2010s. He was, I think, like the leading in popularity StarCraft streamer.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's still a popular streamer, but he started to get into politics, and he started a podcast with Trihex. And so now the two of them are doing a podcast together where they talk about games and current events and things like that. And now there's, I mentioned this, I texted this to you a while ago. Now there's a lot of talk. People want to see Destiny and Secular Talk actually do a stream together, because they're like two of the leading progressive voices in the political sphere. And so I didn't know if you'd heard anything about that, but since you mentioned StarCraft.
But I didn't know. Okay. I think Soda Poppin' too was a popular StarCraft. I'm sorry, not StarCraft. World of Warcraft. I think he was streaming since 14 or 15. I don't know if he was on Justin TV first, and then when Twitch came around, he jumped into that. But he still gets crazy views to this day. He's a funny dude. He's one of the ones I watch. But he doesn't play it as much, but I think he started his whole thing with World of Warcraft.
Yeah, it's weird. When are they ever going to die? I mean, some of these, aren't they still, so this is how out of touch I am with some of the online gaming community. Aren't they still doing Quake? Aren't there still Quake servers running?
They just released a new Quake game. I don't know if it's beta or is it a fully released game, but they were doing another Quake game last year. But again, I know they were streaming it, but I think again it was I think, is it Quake Live? Yeah, I would have to find it. I don't know how popular it is or anything. It's I think since Battle Royale and games of and other type of first person shooters. I don't know if Quake can get that. I think unless you grew up at that time that Quake came out, I think those are the people that would watch it or be interested in it. I think anybody after that probably watches, like I said, Players Unknown Battlegrounds or new Call of Duty that got Battle Royale game in it, and the Fortnite. The stuff Quake does is not really popular in terms of shooters like that anymore. The arena, I guess it's called arena shooters.
Yeah.
So, but I think, oh God, what's that game? That's real big too. I think that's kind of an arena shooter, but I don't know.
Well, I should probably get going, man.
Oh, okay.
Good stuff, man. Good lists. I think covered a lot of stuff. I noticed that nothing on my list was after 1998. I got to catch up with the times.
Well, I mean, I think for a while you didn't really have a lot of interests. I mean, there were games that interested you.
Yeah, I kind of fell out after the early 2000s too for a while. Anyway, though, this is Zuve saying, "Don't be a douchebag."
This is Phantom Outlaw with nothing else to say but good night. I don't know. The first thing that came to my head too is if you get a chance, grab some boobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, good night. How about good night and get good?
Yeah, good night and sleep tight on it. That's funny. I don't know. I gotta go without.
No, if those bed bugs bite, you fucking kick their ass. You fucking get Kirby and you slice the bed in half with your cooking thing, whatever that is. With his cooking knife or whatever, his samurai butcher sword.
Whatever chefs use to cut bananas with. Or cucumbers.
Cleaver?
Use an actual knife. Cleaver, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah, Kirby uses a cleaver, I think. And anyway, go see your lady friend. I'm good. The outro sucks this week.
Grab some boobs and get good.
Grab some boobs, get good. Yes.
All right, good night, everybody. Or good day, or whatever time it is when you're hearing this.
Latest.